Next break jollof waende. Unobudisa makazi. Wodza uende pafree.
Our apologies there for the late restart. Just a couple of technical difficulties, especially with our audio. But glad to have you back as the viewers on our Facebook page at Sandsport Live. You can also go onto YouTube channel, and you can also catch up with us, just Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival 2019, and you should be able to find that one. And just to reference back to this match, it is the second half of this epic encounter in terms of girls rugby here in Zimbabwe. Gorhamonzi versus Vainona, and it is still 0-0, and it's you kind of feel it's a game of fine margins where whoever concedes a try has lost the match, whoever gets the try has ultimately won the match, because it's been very difficult for Vainona to even penetrate Gorhamonzi there. But finally, it looks like a penalty coming through for Gorhamonzi there, and it looks like an offside call against the Vainona Swazis. So the Gorhamonzi Eagles will look to take advantage of what they have here. A big hit from one of their loose forwards, and the ball comes out of the ruck, and they've been doing a whole lot of face play, and I'm sure that has been communicated to them by their coach in terms of their capacity to go for the big hits. Now, pretty unfortunate that there was a knock-on there, but it looks like the penalty advantage has been given, so that knock-on won't count against Gorhamonzi here. The ball finally comes out here. Once again, I am a little bit skeptical about running across, because you tend to kill your own turf. But here it is what it is for Gorhamonzi and Vainona, making the very same mistakes over and over again. And unfortunately, that penalty advantage is over. They knocked on the ball the second time. It will be scrummed down and Vainona Swazi's ball. Now it looks like one of their super subs there from Gorhamonzi has come on. We saw what she was able to do when she played against Dzivarasekwa there, and she made a very big impact. She is one of their loose heads as that substitution is coming through, and you kind of feel that Gorhamonzi here most likely are going for the jugular, considering the fact that they're camping deep in the half of Vainona, just outside their 22. And with the scrum being set here, you still feel that Gorhamonzi has got the heavier pack, and they've been dominant at the breakdowns. But this one is a good scrum for Vainona. Ball coming down the line. It looks like this time round looking to pass the ball, and this time round making the necessary penetration. But unfortunately, no one was running onto the ball there, and they are pretty unfortunate from Gorhamonzi there, as they pick up the ball and are trying to run forward. It was a poor pass from Vainona, but it looks like the play will continue. And knock-on from Gorhamonzi there, and very unfortunate. So a knock-on first from from Gorhamonzi there, and it will be, well, a knock-on from Vainona rather first there, and then a knock-on from Gorhamonzi. So it is going to be scrum down and Gorhamonzi ball. Once again, you see the scrum huddling together, getting to understand what they want to do. I know they've got to move around this. Maybe an eighth man there. Looks like a substitution coming on there. Number 19 coming off, and number 2 coming off the bench for Vainona, wearing the headgear and looking to just add some zest to what Vainona need to do if they're going to get out of their own half. You kind of feel that Gorhamonzi have had a better game at the end of the day. Ball fed into the scrum, but it doesn't look like it was a good engagement in that scrum. So the referee once again has to have a word. Finally, the ball comes out here, but a very poor pass. But it looks like Vainona were in an offside position, or rather not rolling away from the ruck. Not rolling away from the ruck there, but this is absolutely fantastic stuff that's coming through from Gorhamonzi. They are really putting Vainona under pressure, and you feel that their phase play has been well worked out. Some good structure from Gorhamonzi and taking full advantage of Vainona's weaknesses there of getting the ball out of their own defensive half. They need to get the ball out quicker, and they need to have better line speed if they're going to stop Gorhamonzi from coming at them. So it is a penalty coming through to Gorhamonzi, and you feel their super sub, who is the number 11, big girl, she can put in a big hit, and you feel it could be a try if she can get through. A quick tap. She gets the ball, a big hit from her there, and almost got to the try line, but well defended by Vainona there. At least they bunched up together. And here comes the ball, centimeters away from the try box for Vainona, for Gorhamonzi rather. They tried to go for a pick and go. Can they go for another one here? They tried to go for the pick and go, and yes, it is try time for Gorhamonzi. We said it. Number 4, their lock, finally puts the ball over the line. Vainona have got only themselves to blame for allowing so much pressure to be piled on them. We're going to be waiting for the replay, but once again, fantastic face play from Gorhamonzi. Well done to them. They haven't used the line so much, but it is happening for them. So it is try time for Gorhamonzi. 5 points on the board. Not so sure if the conversion is going to happen here, but just waiting on the ball to finally come. The kicking tee is on the field of play. Gorhamonzi now leading 5 points to 0 against Vainona. Vainona here will feel a little bit stunned and a little bit disappointed in how they went about business in their own half. They didn't clear their lines. They didn't kick the ball out of their own 22 when they had the opportunity to, and because of that, they've paid a price. And the last time I checked, Gorhamonzi had a girl with a pretty good boot on her. And here comes the number 14, looking like she's lining up a pretty good kick. If she gets it over, it's going to be really good. It's looking like a good kick. Pretty unfortunate it didn't have the distance. The direction was great, but it didn't have the distance. And so Gorhamonzi now lead 5 points to 0 against Vainona. Vainona will have it all to do. And with the body language, as you can see on the screen right now, it looks like they're disappointed with themselves. But they have to pick themselves up. There's still time left in the game, and they can still score a try and ultimately win this game. Number 14 from Gorhamonzi on the screen has had really a relatively good festival in terms of kicking, but unfortunately they didn't have enough power in her kick and it didn't go over. So Gorhamonzi leading 5-0 in this wonderful encounter of schoolgirl rugby. Gorhamonzi pick it up from the restart. A lovely sidestep inside and outside, and she does gain some ground there. So Gorhamonzi looking to continue in face play. Unfortunately, Gorhamonzi holding onto the ball, and it's a quick tap and go for Vainona here, but asked to come back and tap from the mark where the referee has given it. So here comes Vainona again with an opportunity to try and go for the try. A quick tap and go here from Vainona. A big hit from the substitute there, number 2. One of their forwards. Another hit from their forward, loose forwards, but not quite getting through there. The ball finally coming down the line. If they take advantage of the line, they could have an overlap. But once again, it seems they keep on running across. However, Gorhamonzi are punished again for making the mistake. They are not going back 10 meters every time a penalty has been given. And the captain here comes and asks, what exactly is going on? We need to have an understanding here. And so the referee here giving an ear, lending an ear to Gorhamonzi and just getting to understand what exactly might be going on with their offside position. But it looks like these girls really know their rugby and having consultations with the ref. Vainona once again with the tap and go. And time might not be on their side. Unfortunately, Gorhamonzi trying to put their hands in the ruck right there, and that is not allowed. And that was a knock-on, and ultimately it will be Vainona Swazi's ball. But Gorhamonzi here, Gorhamonzi definitely showing that face play and forward play can work. If you're a young girl and you're watching this rugby match and you're wondering how to actually be a forward, watch what Gorhamonzi can do. They've really done well with their forward pack, and their forward pack is really passing the ball. When they see that there's no way to penetrate and go through, they pass the ball. When they see that a big hit is available, they go for that big hit, and they have been successful most of the time. With the scrum set and Vainona feeding the ball. Looks like a good feed. Gorhamonzi push back here, but the ball has finally come out. A poor pass from their fly-off, and it's a knock-on straight from the first center of Vainona there. But unfortunately, Gorhamonzi were in an offside position, and they keep on conceding these penalties as they go deep in their own 22. It's going to be another tap and go here to their loose forwards. Not enough pace there, and finally handing the ball over to one of the substitutes from Vainona. But finally brought to ground by Gorhamonzi. And they look to have better line speed here. Go for the tackle there, which is a pretty good defense. Is Vainona, but a quick pick and go from Vainona there. From there, number 9 pushes them even into their own territory, and the ref blows once again. Gorhamonzi not back 10. Not so sure what's happening there. The communication must get better. But Vainona here, a pop pass which just runs up, and that looks like a forward pass. It will be scrummed down and Gorhamonzi ball. And you kind of feel from this point, they need to clear their lines. Go for the scrum, get the good ball in, pass it out, and then go for a kick. Once again, good communication between the ladies from Gorhamonzi, knowing what they want to do before they get into the scrum. And Vainona will want to go for a big shove here, but it will be very difficult against the pack weight of Gorhamonzi. A clean feed from Gorhamonzi, but the ball finally comes out, and a kick from Gorhamonzi there to try and see if they can just clear their lines. It goes past the 22, but fullback here running across, and looks like they're making headway, but maybe a pass would have been better there. The pass finally comes off to the right winger of Vainona, but finally brought to ground there. That's close to 10 or so meters away from the try line. The ball comes out again, a lovely sidestep, and Vainona look to go for the maul here, but Gorhamonzi holding strong in their defense. Running across and running backwards, that is not allowed in rugby, young girl, because you lose meters. And unfortunately there, Gorhamonzi putting their hands in the ruck and not rolling away from the tackle. A quick tap and go here from Vainona. Could they finally get their try? But Gorhamonzi defending very well here to push Vainona out of the ruck. And finally Vainona get the ball, and it looks like, and the referee has signaled a penalty again here, saying that they didn't go 10 meters. The question will be, why didn't he play the advantage? But anyway, it is a penalty to Vainona. Gorhamonzi asked to go back 10 meters here. They'll need to be awake, because a quick tap and go could put them under a lot of pressure. And Vainona come back here, but pulled back by Gorhamonzi. The ball comes out of the ruck there, but it looks like they're being pushed back again and again by Gorhamonzi. There is a space on the blind side, but finally a knock on, and it should be scrummed down and Gorhamonzi ball. And Vainona will be kicking at the turf here, asking the referee, why didn't you give us that advantage? Because clearly it was our own penalty. Vainona has had some better impetus in the scrums, especially since they found themselves deep in Gorhamonzi territory. But the question is, will they be able to push back that pack weight of Gorhamonzi? They've got really big ladies in there. And once again, the ball comes in clean for Gorhamonzi. Some pressure from Vainona, but already that was offside from the scrum half there. And so Vainona will have to go back 10 meters here. It will be a tap and go, but I would have loved to see maybe a kick here, go for touch. Not so sure what's happening there. Just a discussion between the scrum half there and maybe the captain. So the ball comes out here. A dummy and a big hit from Gorhamonzi. At least now getting through to their 22. The ball comes out again to their super sub. Big lady who pushes close to 4 girls. Oh my goodness me. You really can't bring her down. But the ball pops out of the ruck here. And Vainona have a turnover. And will look to push here. But Gorhamonzi finally have a turnover as well. A knock on from Vainona here. And they'll look to take advantage. The ball comes out of the ruck, but finally the referee blows for that knock on by Vainona. And it is a scrum down and Gorhamonzi ball. And it looks like it is full time. And now in this game, it was a tight match, but Gorhamonzi come out 5-0 victors against Vainona High School. So Vainona High School get their taste of defeat in the Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival. But what a game it was, end-to-end stuff, and it finally paid off for Gorhamonzi. That forward face play, it was great, it was fantastic, and that's exactly what we want to see. And most likely we'll see many of these girls plying their trade for the Zimbabwe under-18 girls side that will go through to the Craven Week. Full time on the iconic Jubilee Field between Gorhamonzi High and Vainona. Gorhamonzi High 5, Vainona 0.
On the Jubilee Field, that was Gorhamonzi girls versus Vainona girls. What a game it was, really. And for the two PM fixtures, we have on the Jubilee Field, we have Achievers versus Norway. And on the Avenues Field, we have Matenza versus Maboko High. On the Hospital Field, we have SOS versus Direct Contact. And on the Chapel Field, we have Mother Touch versus Sahobani. Mother Touch girls versus Sahobani girls. And on the Rose Field, we have Team One under 16 versus All Stars. And we would like to acknowledge our sponsors who are making this festival a success. We have
Welcome back to the live coverage of the 2019 Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival. It is another match after we've witnessed a really titanic battle between Gorhamonzi and Vainona High. Gorhamonzi coming out 5-0 victors, but this match is, well, the gents are back on the field of play. High Achievers versus Norway High. And High Achievers here under early pressure in the first half as Norway look to gain some form of advantage. Norway have a penalty here. They will go for a tap, poor pass, and very lucky that they don't have High Achievers with good line speed. But anyway, a couple of side steps here, and it looks like he's making his way, the young man here. Finally tries to let go of the ball, and unfortunately a knock-on from Norway there, and losing very important possession at a moment where they really had gone over the gain line and were really going to the try box of High Achievers there. But High Achievers will feel very relieved that that ball didn't go to hand at the time that it needed to for Norway to score the points. The action continues, and you can go onto the @Sandsport live Facebook page. You can also go onto the Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival Facebook page as well. Go to the Kwese iFlix as well. Go onto YouTube and you can search Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival 2019 and you'll be able to find all of this action and share it with someone. Share it with family and friends and watch the fantastic rugby as it's being played. So it looks like it is going to be another scrum here. And it's going to be High Achievers ball. Some handling errors coming pretty early on in the match, and they'll see what will actually happen from here, whether they'll get a good shove or not. So the ball comes through. It looks like it has been taken as a feed. The ball finally comes out here, and they look to run the ball, a sidestep, but not so sure if that was smart because it ended up becoming a forward pass signaled by the referee there. Now it is going to be scrummed down and Norway High's ball, and if they can take advantage of this and run the ball down the line, they could stretch the High Achievers defense, which is what we love to see in terms of basic schoolboy rugby. So they're holding here in the scrum. Finally, the ball comes through. It's a clean feed for Norway High here. They finally get the ball out, but it's a pretty scrappy pass. Luckily knocked backwards. However, fly-off goes into contact there. And I guess that was the best idea. The ball comes out again. They try to go for some quick pick and go. But again, they don't quite have the muscle that is needed to penetrate High Achievers here. Finally, the ball comes out, looking like they're running out of turf, and they decide to run back into traffic here. Another quick pick and go from Norway High here. They decide to go for another big hit here. And looks like the ball has been picked up by the forward, but ripped away by High Achievers, and I'm sure High Achievers were in an offside position, an offside call by the referee there, and it will be a tap and go for Norway High here. Maybe they could use it a bit more wisely in front of the post, maybe go for the kick, but if you don't have a fly-off that can do that, then a tap and go is your best idea. They give it to the big man. He goes in for the big hit, and it looks like a good penetrating run there for Norway. Norway get the ball out once again, running across and allowing the defense just to predict their play. The ball comes out again. It was a little bit of a knock-on from Norway there, and you kind of feel they gave away advantage whilst they were in the 22 of High Achievers. But once again, poor handling errors coming through from the boys, Dirk, and you kind of feel at the end of the day it will be the story up until the end of the festival.
Hello, Ravimbo. How are you?
Good to have you.
Nice to be back in the commentary box with you. Yeah, I think that as a lot of people know that Friday is an opportunity for, we'll call them the lesser teams, to showcase their ability. So the expectation is that the skill set might not be as high as what we expect from the mainstream rugby schools, but nevertheless, an opportunity for them to showcase themselves. We've been talking about this fact that there's scouts here, and you know, even within the lesser teams, the scouts will still identify talent, because it could just be identified that, yeah, the team's not very strong, but as an individual, he's got some real good skill.
Oh yes, and talking about scouts that I hear, you are not only talking about scouts that are coming through from South Africa, but even local scouts. The coaches who coach some of the traditional rugby schools are actually here today, looking at some of the youngsters and maybe see if they can pick out any to strengthen and bolster their squads for the season.
Well, exactly that. I think as well as much as we're watching a first team level, that unfortunately for a lot of these youngsters it might be too late. But remember that this festival is not all about just the first teams. There's lesser teams as well. So a kid from a lesser school identified at under 16 level, which is on the field behind us, he's still got his senior years to play, and every chance that he could be snapped up by one of these big schools.
Oh yes, they'll be looking forward to that as the ball is fed in by Norway High here, but a big shove from High Achievers, and you just feel if they could run the ball a little bit earlier. They had a huge overlap on the outside, and once again it is a little bit of a showboating play there, and it's not really benefiting the team. If they could just get the ball out wide quicker, then we could see them going above, just beyond the gain line there, and that's the most important thing in terms of 15s rugby. You need to gain territory, and that's the only way you can get close to scoring points.
I'm going to test you. Where is Norway?
Norway, I am not so sure of their location, but I do know that they are very much out of our eye. So maybe just heading in the direction of Mrewa, Mtoko, and you'll be.
Have you been reliably informed, or someone just hinted that to you?
Well, I would love to believe that our engineer here.
Because I was thinking of going out for a drive on Sunday, and if I'm heading to Norway and I head out to Morewa, I hope it's not the opposite direction, because that's what you've told me, Ravimbo. Come on, viewers out there, those based in Zimbabwe, you can tell us where Norway is.
And it looks like this time round, getting ball to hand there, deep in the 22. He could just penetrate all the way to the try box, and he does. So finally, they get the ball through the hands, and try time, as easily predicted.
Well, not only to get the ball through the hands, but the skill set of not knocking the ball on, the forward passes, passes going to hand, and we've been talking about that. And I guess that it's easy for us to sit here and say that because we don't have defenders in front of us, or we're not trying to catch a ball. Well, it's not a try.
Well, it's not a try. It actually looks like as if the referee has signaled a knock on there. So looking at that ball, I would have bet my top dollar that he went over the try line, but yeah, it may have been slightly short.
I think that was a try. I think that was a try.
It looks like it was a try from where we were sitting, but then again, maybe our camera vision wasn't as great.
Correct. We were too busy wondering where Norway was.
So maybe this time round, High Achievers can make it all the way through to Norway there, but unfortunately, losing the ball in contact there, not too good. But stepping into touch a little bit there, but that was better play from High Achievers. A little bit dangerous trying to run the ball out of your own 22, but hey, if it works, then give it a try.
I want to draw your attention to the outside centre. He's approaching the top left-hand side of your screen there. He doesn't have a number on his back. He's got SM on his back, and he looks like a strong lad. And on a couple of occasions down this near side here, he's had a couple of runs. And he looks like he's got some really good basics about him. He runs with the ball in the right hands, and it'd be interesting to maybe just watch him for a little bit and see how he goes. There he is facing the other way. He's got SM on his back. the outside centre. And I haven't watched much of the game yet, but very quickly he's impressed me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, talking about some of these youngsters as well, even looking at Norway, the young man who was adjudged to have knocked on the ball had an earlier run just before you joined me in the commentary box, and it is about his nimble feet. He was very quick through in terms of his side steps and going through the opposition, but a nice eighth-man break here, and finally a pop pass outside. Maybe an inside pass would have worked a little bit earlier, but again, that pass was not on at the time of the tackle, and he maybe should have gone with it into contact. But here, Norway looked to try and go past the high achievers, but throwing the ball there in a nothing pass and picked up by one of their big loose heads here. But he tends to get tired very quickly there, does he, Dirk? And you kind of feel that he will be on just for a very short period of time.
Well, Norway, they're guilty of exact opposite of what we spoke about earlier, was ensuring that it wasn't speculative passes or just throwing the ball in the air. Make sure that your pass is going to the players, and hence the turnover. But again, some great play from high achievers as well to break through the line. Guilty maybe of just delaying that pass and hence the intercept. If the pass was a little bit earlier, you could have carried on the play. But I guess that this is the only place they're going to learn. You can run those practices as much as you want during training. There's that player we spoke about with SM on his back, and a good offload from him, but unfortunately unable to be caught by the wing, and it will be a knock on Norway ball. But both teams showing the ability to throw the ball around and trying to play some exciting rugby.
Yes, showing a little bit of promise there, and you just kind of wish some of the issues that we were talking about yesterday there, Dirk, in terms of having a lot more development happening with these sides, getting to play maybe third teams from traditional rugby playing schools. That would give them some of that exposure, and you kind of hope that that will be an idea that will be taken on board. So we hope that Zimbabwe Rugby Union, or to the powers that be that put together the school boy and schoolgirl schedules, would be able to do that as well.
I think that the danger that they run, and this isn't a fault of the traditional schools, it's just how it is that they very much operate in their vacuum. You know, so unfortunately, I think to change that mindset, and if you have a look at even our traditional seasons of sport, our rugby season's very short. You know, a traditional school will probably only play maybe 6 or 8 games in a season. I've got the funny feeling that wing was offsides, but play on, says the ref, so it will be a line out to Norway on the halfway line. So to reschedule or rechange the whole dynamic on how we do our fixtures is a problem. I do feel, though, that someone has the ability to set the example and allow everyone else to follow. We have very long traditional athletics and cross-country seasons. Me not being a fan of athletics and cross-country, I sort of look at it and go, guys, why aren't we pushing our bigger sports? Why aren't we playing more cricket? Why aren't we playing more rugby, more football at school level? Those are our major sports. I have no doubt that athletes that are cross-country runners or athletics people would be listening to me and going, wow, that's only because you don't like that sport. And it's probably true. But I guess that there's got to be an avenue of saying, okay, if we're going to progress as a rugby nation or a cricket nation or a football nation, then we have to, unfortunately, give those kind of sports a little bit more attention. And if it means increasing the season, then that's what we need to do.
Most definitely. Now, high achievers here have got the ascendancy, and will look to try and penetrate through Norway here. And they do have the forward pack. I mean, they've got a big man here, but I mean, just looking on the screen, you can see he's already tired. And this is only the first half, so you don't see him continuing the game for too long at the end of the day. And that's where the aspects of fitness, issues of conditioning, strength and conditioning, all of these are sports science kind of things that I'm talking about that won't necessarily get down to some of these schools here, Dave.
Well, his other problem is that in contact he goes very high on the ball, and he needs to get a little bit lower. As much as he's big, he's easy to defend if he's running upright. A knock on there from High Achievers, and you can see the irritation amongst the players. I have no doubt it's irritating the bench and the coaching staff no end. But little mistakes. They're elements of nice continuity and pick up and goes and runners off the ball and good support play. And then they just let it down with a silly little knock-on.
Yeah, when it comes to decision making, that is something that comes as well with game time. Learning to manage your game, learning to understand your opponent as the game is continuing. You really need a rugby mind, a rugby brain that's concentrating all the time. So it's a big scrum from High Achievers. However, Norway have the ball here and they finally go for the kick, but however, the kick is really a nothing kick. Little communication from High Achievers there, but at least the ball goes into hand. Now, picked up by...
There's my player.
Oh, yeah. Here
SM.
It comes.
We're going to call him SM from now. But you know what that stands for?
Oh, what
Well,
does
I
it?
don't know. We're going to work it out.
Superman.
Superman. Nice.
So there it goes again, Dirk. You were talking about the player going into contact straight and well charged down by High Achievers there, and they get the possession back and looking to go for some leg drive here, and it's some pretty strong leg drive at that. Good pick up there from the scrum half, finally coming out. Can they get the ball to Superman? Not so sure it's going to get to him, but they are close. And they do have a man outside, but they go for the sidestep and go for the dive, and it's try time for High Achievers here. And they will feel that finally a move has come off here. They ran the ball through their hands. It went to hand. They had a man on the outside. That stretched the defense of Norway. And finally it was try time.
Well, they were lucky because the cheap steal, which then brought about the charge down, gave them the ball back. And they probably didn't earn that ball back. But good work by that scrum half. Like you said, the defenders were being drawn to the far side and they were drifting. And someone was going to have to straighten. Yes, they maybe would have got it out wide and he might have dived into the corner. But what he did do was a little show that he was going to go that way, straighten the line. And the defenders all went the one way. And in the end, a pretty simple try. The conversion is unsuccessful. But finally, High Achievers get the first points on the board. And they lead Norway here on Jubilee Field, 5-0.
Now High Achievers get their points on the board, and Superman is close to the touchline. I mean, would you want to greet him, Dirk?
I might actually go and get a selfie with him a little bit later. I'm going to think of another name for him. But right off at your peril that Superman doesn't maybe put some points on the board himself later on in this game.
So looking forward to Norway here, maybe coming through with a better response. They had a little bit of advantage at some point, but didn't quite take advantage of what they had. And so Norway are going to restart the match for us here, trailing 5-0 against High Achievers. And we know High Achievers tend to fall away in the second half. And if Norway can keep their fitness levels up and maybe not trail behind too much, they should be able to get back into the match. Now High Achievers here come with the ball once again from the big man, but he decides to offload here and coming through to the ruck. The ball finally comes out here. Can they get the ball through the hands? Finally it comes through, and a poor pass passing behind, but Superman has ball in hand here. Shows a dummy, a sidestep, but ball doesn't go to hand for the winger, and because of that knock on, it will be scrummed down and should be Norway ball there. But it looks like Norway was the one which knocked on the ball. Not so sure what happened there, Dirk.
Yeah, again, the pass was wayward. It was too high. It just broke the momentum completely. But talking about SM and the way he plays, you notice how he got around the player. He had the ball in two hands, and the whole time he's looking for the offload. Unfortunately, the wing wasn't able to get away. But, you know, I think those are the kind of little things that scouts will be looking for. And you have a look at him when he runs. He looks natural. He doesn't have the long, skinny legs. He just looks like an athlete. So I'm looking forward to... This is him here. There he gets the ball. Watch this. Ball in two hands. Steps one player. Looks for the offload. There it is. And unfortunately, the wing unable. It's the second time that wing's dropped the ball. Maybe that's why he wears a pink shirt, because I don't know if it's like, don't pass to the guy in the pink shirt because he doesn't catch it. I hope not.
Ah, Dirk, be nice. But anyway, here comes the ball from High Achievers there. It's looking pretty good now. Now Pink Man with the ball there, coming through. I would give him...
Nice, come back, nice. Nice little run from him. There's the offload. Ref is going to call them back for what in the end would be a forward pass because it went to hand, but knocked on from the hand. But that was good momentum from High Achievers, and they're sort of starting to find their stride in this game.
Oh yes, definitely starting to find their stride. And if Norway here aren't too careful, then they could actually receive a very huge battering from High Achievers. But talking about that, once again, it's good that the sponsors have come out. A very big, huge thank you to Dairibord for making this entire festival possible, allowing these schools to come through, the wonderful platform that they have in order to showcase their talent and maybe be scouted to go to other rugby playing schools. But a big scrum again from High Achievers here, and Norway collapsing in their scrums, but the ball finally comes out. Can they get the ball through their hands? Unfortunately, trying to do it all alone here and losing the momentum every time, and this time round losing the ball in contact, and this time round Superman gets the ball and a lovely side steps, and again looking for that pass, and that's exactly what he's doing. Unfortunately, the pass not coming off there for High Achievers and pushing the ball backwards, but finally they penetrate through the no-name man, and then finally number 7 trying to go through, and he will make it over for another try for High Achievers here. But it looks like there was a knock-on from High Achievers there, and that signals the end of that half. Pretty unfortunate for High Achievers that they couldn't double their lead, but once again Superman showing that he is a Superman on the ball, looking for both the inside and outside pass, and that's what you need from a man in his capacity.
Well, here's the million-dollar question. For a guy with his skill, and I mean, he looks like he's got some real vision, should he be playing at outside centre? You know, I'm not questioning High Achievers fly half, but, you know, a guy with that kind of skill set and the vision of reading the game and looking for the pass and putting players away, worst case scenario, play him at inside centre, not at outside centre.
Oh yes, you would want him to be distributing the ball and commanding the line, since he seems to have a better understanding of the game as compared to his compatriots. And it's pretty sad. Maybe you might feel that this was a team that was put together maybe a week before the festival and didn't quite get to understand how the players go about their game.
Okay, so halftime here, High Achievers 5, Norway 0. The jury's still out on where Norway is, but Ravimbo tells me very reliably if I drive out to Morewa somewhere that I might find it. But we're going to leave that there. I might look on the map tonight. The question is, and I'm going to be saying this for the next 2 days, we'll call High Achievers because they're leading and they maybe look the more structured side. With this team that we're watching, and that's them in picture, would they be found short against a St. George's second or third team, do you think?
Not so much. In actual fact, they played St. George's seconds in the first match. It didn't quite go their way. First half, they really held St. George's seconds for a long time, but a couple of decisions were a little bit iffy, and they dropped their heads, and ultimately that was the game. But you kind of felt that they were standing toe-to-toe with them for very long periods within the game, and with a little bit more in terms of games, in terms of more understanding of the game, then you find that they would stand toe-to-toe with the St. George's seconds.
Okay, well, here's a perfect example. Yesterday's game, Milton versus Churchill. What a game from Milton. And yes, everyone can say Churchill played really badly. Milton did not look out of place. Their first game they played, they got a hiding, didn't they, Milton? The point being is that an opportunity, and I have no doubt High Achievers are playing a better brand of rugby today, no doubt because of the exposure against St. George's. Milton all of a sudden got a hiding, woke up, came against Churchill, and I'm telling you they went toe-to-toe. Churchill can say they were poor, 100%. They knocked the ball on, they played some poor rugby, but let me tell you, they could have lost that game. They were lucky. So my point being is that High Achievers can get better.
Oh, yeah.
But they need that exposure. They need a team like St. George's to say, okay, our second team this week is playing against St. John's. It's playing against Hellenic, whatever it might be. But we have a gap in our thirds. Do you want to come and play against us? Because here's the point as well. As a school kid, all you want to do is play rugby. And what happens if you at big school and you're in the thirds or fourths? How many games do you play a season? Because how many teams can put thirds and fourths together? Very few.
Yeah, very few.
So if you are a team that has that, I remember when I was at school, for me it wasn't, yes, it was great winning, and I was a very competitive guy, but it was more about just being able to play. The last thing I want to do is every Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, I'm just on the training field. I want game time. The bottom line is if my game time is thirds, it gives me an opportunity to prove myself. Maybe I can get into the seconds, and if it's seconds, maybe I can get into firsts. So I think that there's an opportunity that we don't have to reinvent the wheel from the more established schools by going, how do you want us to fit high achievers into our structures? Because, yes, the problem that they've got is not just about the first team. Do you have teams all the way down? And high achievers might go, you know what, guys, we can compete at first team level, sort of, but the rest of the teams, we're wasting our time. That's okay. But why can't we say, right, our first team this week's playing against Falcon. Falcon can only put out maybe 2 or 3 teams. We've got 4 teams. Right, fourths, you're staying back at St. George's this weekend, or PE, you're staying back at PE, and you're paying high achievers.
Most definitely, and I think it would be a wonderful idea, and it would spread the development of rugby and up the level of competition. And we've seen how some of the sides that were not necessarily ranked as very high-playing rugby schools are now beginning to stun some of the traditional giants. And taking an example of yesterday's game between Kyle College and St. George's, Kyle College was never really known for that. I mean, back in my school days, we used to give them the thirds in order to play their first team. But now, all of a sudden, they are saying we deserve to be at the big boys table, and they are proving it. They beat St. George's yesterday, and it's as a result of them continuously coming through and saying, look, we want to play. We want to play. We want to play against the likes of Churchill, and Churchill will say, it's fine, we'll give you the thirds. But they're getting better. And then the thirds get beaten next year, and then you say, okay, let's give them the seconds because they seem to have gotten better. And then the seconds are beaten the next year, and then, okay, let's now put the first. And now the first is beaten, and now all of a sudden, the tables have turned. And so that's something that people need to begin to look at, and hopefully that will spread development. Now, a pretty good run from high achievers there. Unfortunately, a little bit of an ankle tap coming through there, and he finally went to ground. But high achievers looking to continue from where they left off against Norway. Lovely pick and go here. It shows that there's an understanding of phase play as well. Not so sure if they have the sizable men to continuously go through that, and we can already see a knock-on as well coming through that.
Well, yeah, high achievers letting themselves down once again. They were on the front foot and just over the halfway line, knocking the ball on. So it will be a chance for Norway to try and pull one back. There was a try disallowed on the halftime hooter. The referee called knock-on. I couldn't see it, but that's probably why I'm sitting here and not running with my tackies on trying to ref a game. 2 tries disallowed in this game. 1 for Norway and 1 for high achievers. We'll have to reset that one. But again, we're going to go back as well. We're not saying that Norway don't have any good players, but we have identified SM, who's playing outside centre, for high achievers. And it would be interesting as well to see how many times he touches the ball in the second half. Our concern in the commentary box is whether or not he's wasted on outside centre. There he is behind his scrum half on the far side. And maybe getting him a little bit more involved in the play might give high achievers a better opportunity. A guy with just a little bit more vision and reads the game a little bit quicker can put one of the lesser players away. So maybe a call for the coaching staff of Higher Life to consider that and getting him a little bit more busy.
Oh yeah, get him a little bit more busy, and hopefully they have the time in order to assess that kind of a play and also get some of the advice. I would also love to see some of the coaches from traditional rugby schools giving some advice, but that looks like a turnover ball there for high achievers. Let it go through the hands, and I'm sure you'll be able to get another try. And it looks like it's going pretty good for them right now, and it should be try time again for high achievers.
Guess who scored it?
It is
My
Superman.
Man, there he is. So maybe on that occasion you should be at outside centre.
Yeah.
But again, watch him catch the ball. He's got it in both hands and then realised that maybe he can go himself, tucked it under his arm and went all the way. So good little passage of play. It was a tight head. Norway's put into the scrum. They lost that. And nice, good hands through the back line. and High Achievers getting over in the far corner.
Oh yes, and as we await the conversion to come, it wasn't great kicking from the young man the last time round. It kind of went pretty flat. And once again, we would like to focus on the young man as he comes through for the conversion. And we talk about what Kenny Tsimba was talking about. That follow through isn't quite coming through. So maybe some of these youngsters coming through from a soccer background, and so maybe they don't come through with a high back lift and a nice high follow through, and I'm sure he's going to miss this conversion because of that technique.
He looks the part. The question is he got enough power to get it over the... No power. You got a little bit of height on it. I mean, they are hard kicks, but yeah, I mean, to have 15 minutes of Kenny Simba's time to just discuss these kind of things, and you know what, I think that, again, it's easy for me to say, but you know, there's some seriously good coaches here. You know, Sean D'Souza from Prince Edward, I don't think he's unapproachable. To be able to go to him and say, Sean, you know what, you watched us play today, give us a couple of tips. What can we work on? And I think that's the combined effort that we need from a rugby nation. High Achievers, I would assume, or even Norway for that fact, would never look at Prince Edward as being competition, and neither would Sean D'Souza. So to give a little bit of input, we just need a bit more of that. We need to all help each other to make our rugby in this country better.
Oh yes, we need that to happen, and High Achievers now looking to really put the hammer down against Norway here. And so the High Achievers leading 10-0 against Norway here, and will look to put another try down. And it seems like they're getting the idea now, and it looks like finally they've got earpieces and they're hearing the commentary, that if you run the ball through the hands, then you have got a better opportunity of getting the try. Once again, a pretty poor pass, but it does get to hand there to the pink man, and that was a very hefty tackle from the Noah man there. And yeah, I'm sure the young man will go back into the ruck and will be feeling that tackle all day long.
Yeah, it was a serious tackle. Quick tap and go. So another opportunity for...
And finally running the ball down the line. It is out wide, but didn't just pass the ball on time there. And once again, they'll have to go into the ruck and try to see what they can do after that. But they are close to the try line here, and centimeters away, literally. A pick and go would ultimately give them the try. And it looks like it's try time once again. Not so sure. I saw Superman, SM, actually participating in that ruck. And I'm not so sure if he's the one who picked up the ball and went over the line, but yeah.
Well, my question is, I don't know if you saw Norway's reaction after that try with their hands up in the air. We'll hopefully see it on the replay, but just before he dives over the try line, just have a look at the referee. He's facing the other way. And so when we talk about player development and that kind of stuff, there's an also opportunity to develop referees. Watch him. So there's the ball go down. Watch him now. So he's not really where the play is. There he's looking this way, and there he's over the try line. He hasn't asked his touch judge what she thinks. He's just awarded the try, and look at Norway.
Oh yes, definitely. These are... I guess we have the advantage of seeing replays at the same time, and it becomes pretty difficult when a referee has to monitor offside calls, offside lines, and try to see whether the ruck is going on pretty well, no hands in the ruck, and all sorts of things. So it becomes pretty difficult. Here comes another kick here. It looks a little bit better.
Different kicker.
Yeah, different kicker. The technique looks a little bit better, but I guess with practice, surely that could become better, because there was nice high back lift, and there was, of course, that intent to try and curve the ball, but it didn't quite come off though. And so, again, Norway restart here, and they are trailing 15-0 to High Achievers. And High Achievers here should be feeling pretty confident that they should win this match. So 15 points to nil. Our High Achievers leading against Norway here, and maybe you might need to drive out and give them a little bit of confidence after this.
Well, if I know where I'm going, I have no issue in driving out there. Maybe what I will do to punish you in case it's the wrong place I'm taking you with.
Well, it looks like I'll be in for a long journey, but once again, looks like SM there again carrying the ball over, but High Achievers now just have got the momentum here and are looking to continue with the play. Number 7 has been looking pretty good as well on the far left side of the pitch, and it looks like Norway they're going into the ruck, diving into the ruck. A quick tap and go by High Achievers there, and Norway in another offside call against Norway here. It looks like there might be a yellow card, not so sure. The referee wanting to punish Norway here. He may have had a chat with them before, and once again, there's very little you can do to negotiate. And so Norway now 1 man down. They have got 14 men on the field of play. High Achievers now should really bring the game on against Norway and take advantage.
Well, I have no doubt it's going to be a little pop maybe to the number 1. He needs to get a little bit lower. When you watch him go into contact, he's very upright. But he gets the yards and a chance to rebuild now for High Achievers. They got to be careful they don't get offsides, Norway. There's the little kick through, and
unfortunate
too much. Yeah. So it'll be a 22 dropout to Norway, but High Achievers have definitely taken control of this game. You feel that if they carry on playing it the way that they're playing, but they should beat Norway pretty comfortably. They've just got better and better as the game has gone on.
Oh yes, definitely getting better, and it comes with confidence, and especially if you know that you're 15 points up and you have been able to relatively hold your opponents back, then you get more confident to try and do better things. Poor 22 dropout and poor handling again to allow Norway to actually get the advantage in that scrum.
Well, we've just been praising High Achievers for a passage of play of very few mistakes and very few knock-ons, and hence the reason why they lead 15 points to nil, and most of the second half has been in Norway's half. But on that occasion, those little errors, just taking your eye off the ball, and would like to see Norway put something on the board here. Halfway line where the scrum is, they've got options both sides. I'd like to see them get it through their hands, some nice basics, and put some points on the board themselves. There's the switch. So they come the near side.
A lovely pass coming through there. And unfortunately tackled into touch, but this was better play. At least it showed some initiative, it showed some ingenuity there from the scrum half. Good switch of play there, and maybe a little bit more support. He could have maybe given an inside pop pass, and there would have been continuity of play there, Dirk.
Yeah, you're right. Being bundled into touch, I know it's more of an issue in sevens rugby. You don't want to be bundled into touch. You got 15 players, but even more reason to look for that pass. But there were very few supporters running with him, so the pass probably not on.
Well, that looks like an extremely poor line out there, hitting the back of their own player, are High Achievers, and because of that, that should be a knock-on there, and it should go to Norway High, and that's exactly what the referee signals. Now, they are in High Achievers territory. My apologies there. They are in High Achievers territory, and you kind of feel that a blindside run would be pretty good for them here, but there should always be an inside runner for that inside pop pass for it to work.
Well, what we haven't seen them is really get it through the hands. They're running sideways here from Norway. They're finally straightened and the support players are there. So now go forward ball for them as they approach the 22 of High Achievers. They need to keep recycling that ball, and it looks like it's held up. And every chance that this is going to be a turnover ball to High Achievers.
Oh yes, and you said it right, and sadly it is. So not taking full advantage of what they had before them there, and maybe going into contact was not the best idea. Try to recycle the ball as often as possible. We know that the fallback plan for many of the teams at this festival have been to hold up the man in the maul and you get the turnover ball, especially if you haven't had possession for a very long time in the match. Hold up the man, get the ball, and then you can restructure your play from there. But High Achievers have got the advantage now with the scrum coming through. Their scrums have been bigger than Norway's, and it is a successful scrum. An 8-man break from them. I don't know why he decided to go into contact. There were pockets of space and people to pass to, but nonetheless, the ball still remains in their possession. Finally, it goes out wide, close to the touchline there. A tackle comes through, and High Achievers will look to switch play back here, but a very poor pass coming above the head there, and it was a knock-on, but lucky for them, they still retain possession, Dirk.
Called off sides there, Norway, and just a little bit guilty of not retreating. They're starting to get a little bit lazy. Still going, High Achievers. Players on their side. That's good hands from the number 16. And it finds the foot, so it should be a line out to High Achievers. About 10 meters short of the Norway try line, and every chance of another opportunity to score, as long as it's not a woeful line out like the last one.
Oh yes, hoping that it won't be, and that it will go in straight. So many things that you have to look at, especially when a line out comes through. I mean, it has to go in straight, it has to get to the man. Are you going to maul? Are you going to ruck? Are you going to pass it straight? They pass it straight this time round, and the ball comes out from the scrum half there. Lots of men on the outside. A quick pass, and yes, you should feel that it should be try time. A sidestep and comes inside the man, and a try time from number 16 from High Achievers there, and a good try for them.
I don't know much about these two teams, but it just looks like High Achievers have played more rugby. They've been in the game for a little bit longer. Norway take nothing away from them. They've got some really basic, good understanding of the game, but they've found wanting because it's not as high as what High Achievers' understanding is. And that was a sort of simple example of just making sure on defense that you line up man on man. Yes, it's okay if you miss a tackle, but there was just woefully outnumbered on the far side, and an easy try in the end. But like we said, I don't know how many times Norway has been to this festival. A couple more years. The example you used on Carl College used to pay the fourths and the thirds of Churchill. All of a sudden now they're sitting at the head table. So no doubt that this will be a huge learning curve for Norway. But yeah, I think High Achievers now really pulling away and showing that they've been around the block a little bit longer.
And once again, a kick comes it had better direction, but once again we're talking about the practice that is necessary, and very rightly said there, it looks like a lot more experience with the games, and there was a little bit of a headline, but here comes the replay. The ball comes out from the scrum half here, and we're talking about ball going through the hands, and it was a skip pass all the way through to number 16, and then he really wanted the try and took the sidestep on the outside, allowed the men to go past and put it in between the two men there, and so that was a good try for them. But just talking about that level of exposure and play, there was a little bit of a headline on social media yesterday that it seems like it might be a co-ed year this year, and that is on the basis of what we've seen co-ed schools do here at the festival. Kyle College is a co-ed school. We've seen Lomagandi as well. It's a co-ed school, and they've really brought good rugby to the table. So not so sure about what will happen as the season goes on, because
I don't mind that comment, but my question would be, is justify it for me. What would be the reason why it would be a co-ed year? I mean, I would like to know that. The fact that maybe, and we know at schoolboy level, the challenge that you've got, and if you have a look at St. George's this year, I don't know if that was their full team that played against Carl College, but they look tiny. So you have the scenario at first team level where the youngsters are coming through because you lost, let's say, 7 upper sixes. All of a sudden you got a young team. So maybe St. George's in 2 years' time, or the end of or next year, are going to be really good. Co-ed, I'm not so sure how to read into that on what the reason would be, apart from it's just obvious that the co-ed teams have done quite well.
Yeah, it would be a very good argument to have and to have a chat around that. I guess maybe it's really being picked from how they have progressed over time. Looking at the past number of years, how Cal College has been consistently knocking on the door to sit at the big boys table. And I guess that victory yesterday also summed up their efforts and what they've really been doing over time. And already we saw with Lomagandi Bisons that Bob Mahari has moved there, and immediately we've seen a shift in the way that they play their rugby, and they are now playing very competitively. But the ball comes out here from High Achievers, a little bit of a sidestep here, and a missed tackle there. Again, another missed tackle, but finally being brought to ground by Norway High. The ball is going to come out again, maybe get the ball through the hands, a sidestep inside, torn short for his efforts, and finally the ball comes out to number 16 here, who goes in for another sidestep. He put the try down before, another sidestep inside there, but a little one too many there, and ending up in contact. But nonetheless, I'm sure High Achievers will retain possession here and will look to go forward. Once again, they have a huge overlap on the other side, and I'm not so sure if the big man should have taken the route back into traffic there. High Achievers get the ball. Can they run it through the hands here? They have got men outside. Oh, what a wonderful sidestep from their number 10, the fly half. And it is try time again for High Achievers. So it looks like it is going to be a big score for High Achievers here.
Well, I think it's that number 16 second try. He got the last one with the massive overlap. This time just a little show and go. And High Achievers, or rather Norway, just been pulled a little bit too thin. It was great footwork from the youngster, but question again is, you've beaten one guy, then you beat another guy. Surely there's an overlap somewhere, or are you looking for the pass? It's a little bit like going to the bar, Ravimbo, and you've had a couple of drinks and you want to have one more, and then you have another one. Ultimately, you're going to crash your car at some stage. And it's great because, you know, everyone's shouting from the try line or the touch line and going, "Ee, oh, great." He's listening to that. But this was the setup. Look at the defensive lines of Norway. They're really nowhere. And then all of a sudden, there was the overlap, and it was a pretty simple move in the end. Well done to Pickett, but he had so many numbers on the outside. All he had to do was to show a pass. And fair to say, Norway on defense were nowhere.
Much like the trip that you might be taking. But, of course, I'm very unfortunate for Norway that they are being put to this. Now, the conversion was successful, and High Achievers are now leading 27-0. Now, thank you so much to all the viewers as you're watching this at Sandsport Live. That's one of the Facebook pages. It's on the Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival Facebook page. It's on there as well. You can go on YouTube. You can search for Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival 2019. Very interesting play so far. So it looks like High Achievers here should come out with a very significant victory as they're leading 27-0. And a poor restart from Norway there allows High Achievers the advantage. And I'm sure they're going to be running rings around them all day, every day. So the ball comes through a little bit too early for my liking, but a lovely pass on the outside, comes back inside. Loving the play here. Inside again would be really good, but holding onto the ball a little bit too long. But he gets out of that tackle there, number 12 does he, and he goes straight over for another try for High Achievers. So they look like they're running riot here.
Yeah, I think Norway are tired. The first half, they showed some real guts and determination, and they just run out of energy here. And it's expected from the lesser schools. But I think what's happened, unfortunately, is that Norway sort of got a little bit worse and High Achievers got a lot better. And that was a perfect example. That set piece started from the halfway line. Went all the way to the left, went through the hands, came back. Maybe the number 12, like you said, holding onto the ball a little bit long. But in the end, he got over for the try. So another 5-pointer for High Achievers with a conversion to come. And conversion is good. And another 7 points adds to the misery of Norway. Just going back as well to your statement earlier, Ravimbo, about the listeners and thanking them for watching. It's a perfect opportunity to ask our listeners, what are your views on how we improve rugby in the country? And we've got to be very careful of, trying to push the boundaries too far, where we go, let's go and find these kids in grade 5 and let's nurture them and let's put them into academies. It all costs money. However, high achievers or nowhere playing against the fourths of Churchill doesn't cost any money. The structures are there, and that's one great thing about schoolboy rugby, is that it's structured. And maybe some input from our viewers that have been following the Dairibord Rugby Week is your thoughts on how we can make things better. I think it's an open discussion. I don't think there's a right or wrong or a perfect science, but if we can all play our part in making it better. As the final whistle goes here on Jubilee Field, it's High Achievers 34, Norway 0.
Oh, yes. And we are going to be taking a short break around that. And, of course, you can join us for the next match that will be coming pretty soon. We're looking forward to a pretty interesting encounter that will come towards the end of the day. And that will be Prince Edward Seconds versus St. George's Seconds. So that's going to be interesting. But as for now, St. John's College Bullets will be looking to come onto the field of play.
Welcome back to Jubilee Field. Our next game is St. John's second team, the Bullets, playing in green up against Trust Academy in their red and white strip. So Trust Academy will get us started and straight away in front of the kicker. So free kick to St. John's College second team, and not a good start for Trust Academy. They've called the scrum, so early look at these two scrumming teams from Trust Academy and St. John's College. I've been joined in commentary. Ravimbo's made way for Des McDonnell, who's just come off his refereeing stint.
Thank you, Dirk. A very good afternoon to anyone who is watching this live on our Facebook page, iFlix, and the YouTube channel. There's a penalty there to St. John's College. Referee adjudicating that Trust Academy weren't bound correctly in the scrum. St. John's have looked a little bit below standard this tournament, Dirk, and do you think that this is a game that they can potentially try and get their structures back in place and be the dominant side that they have been in the past?
Well, I think that kick doesn't find touch, so a chance now for Trust Academy to run back at St. John's College. Is the turnover, so losing the ball in contact, Trust Academy at St. John's College now on the front foot. Turnover is illegal, says the referee, and maybe another chance for the kicker to find the touchline. Well, I'm not so sure. I know St. John's first team have been down to South Africa to play in the Easter Festival. The question is how many of these youngsters that we see on the field were part of that sort of training camp. I'd like to think most of them, if not all of them, that may be a little bit rusty. And this is why this kind of tournament for a second team like St. John's is valuable, because it just gets them into that rhythm, maybe a little bit rusty. There's some new players, obviously. Remember, the first and second team level has a situation where you've got youngsters coming in. So maybe a young side. We were discussing that about St. George's play yesterday when they went down to Kyle College. They look very small. That's going to be a knock-on from St. John's. So early little mistakes from the Bullets and just allowing Trust Academy to hold on in defence.
I agree with you there, Dirk. Kestel Gertenbach, also a new coach to the St. John's setup, and maybe he's got different philosophies on how he wants the boys to play the game. So I think there's a whole heap that's going on there for everyone to adapt, whether it's the youngsters stepping up to this level or coaching staff trying to adapt to players. But it's a quality scrum there from St. John's. They're putting Trust Academy under immense pressure, and they managed to clear their lines. It's not a bad kick. We found the St. John's fullback a little bit out of position. Let's just see what he has to offer, and he puts a boot to ball. A bit of an aimless kick up the field, and he hasn't chased it all too well, and it's put his team under pressure. But Trust Academy got the ball there. It's a good ruck. They've retained ball. Looks like they're going to try and set up their forward pods and play a very similar game plan to what sort of the bigger schools tend to play. Dirk?
Yeah, I mean, remember that it is the St. John's second team. We would have loved to have seen their first team here in action, but nice to see Trust Academy on the front foot as they now into the half of St. John's, but it looks like a foot into touch. And it's a great test for these youngsters of St. John's. No doubt that some of them as well who would feel disgruntled that they're not in the first team squad. Here's your opportunity. Go and show your skill set at the Dairibord week, and all of a sudden you find yourself with a first team cap.
Definitely, it is a great showcase for many of these players from all schools, not just the second teams playing here, but it's also good for these sort of smaller schools to be playing against the so-called pedigree rugby schools. It's a bit of a scrappy line out there, but St. John's have lost possession, and it could cost them here. Trust Academy playing a very, very good game so far, and it's a wide ball out there to the 8th man of Trust Academy, who makes a burly run up the middle. It looks like he's not going to be stopped, but it's a great tackle in the end there from the St. John's fullback. Trust Academy on the front foot ball yet again, out to one of their front runners, setting up their phases. Looks like they want to spread it wide and try and put it down on the corner here.
Well, now just a couple of meters short, and this is great ball retention as well from Trust Academy, and referee's going to call them back for a knock-on. But signs of Trust Academy really putting St. John's under pressure. Maybe fair to say that the defence in the end by St. John's was good. They managed to keep Trust Academy out. But I think they've very quickly realised, St. John's, that they've got their work cut out here. If they're going to overcome Trust Academy, it's not going to be a walk in the park. They've got some work to do here.
We discussed this yesterday with some of the bigger schools, Churchill PE playing the smaller ones, Milton, Alan Wilson. There is a tendency for the so-called winners to fall asleep, and these underdogs, once they have a sniff of the try line, they generally convert their opportunities into points, and St. John's are not careful here. Trust Academy could draw first blood, but well worked scrum, but it looks like they're trying to run it out from their 22. But sense has prevailed and kick up the field, finding a bit of space on the outside there. And I think the coaches there for St. John's would be happy with the net gain. They've got themselves out of pressure, and it's a line out to Trust Academy. We saw in the first line-out of the game a bit of a scrappy ball from both sides. So Trust Academy would want to win some clean ball here and try and set up an attacking phase in the midfield. Off screen, they've got all their big runners waiting to run onto the ball. And so knock on there from St. John's. Referee has awarded that the ball has not gone straight, so it will be scrum down to St. John's. They have been dominant so far, but if they continuously try and play the ball in their own half, it's going to be a long day in the office.
Well, I think as well is that they've been a little bit guilty of making some mistakes. They were not too long ago in Trust Academy's 22, and then a silly little knock-on caused the turnover, and they've sort of allowed Trust Academy back, almost having scored their own try, and now a chance for them to really attack, but their skills a little bit wanting at the moment. They decide to go to the boot, a slightly aimless kick, and all they've done is given possession back to Trust Academy. And we've seen that when you give them an opportunity to run with the ball, they look reasonably dangerous. Have a look at that pass, an absolute beauty. Still going, 5 short.
A great bit of skill shown there on the outside. Got his player away, but St. John's have done some great work at that breakdown, managing to turn the ball over, and a little bit under pressure there. But referee's blown his whistle for tackler not rolling away. They count their lucky stars, St. John's there, I think. That looked like a definite 5-pointer. It's a bit of an aimless kick once again, but with wicked ball of the bounce, and Trust Academy back on the attack, and this fullback looks like he's full of running, and he's a silky runner.
Well, Trust Academy attacking again. They've got away with it a couple of times, and this time they're not. He's done it right in front of the referee, so a penalty to Trust Academy, and they continue to press the St. John's Bullets team. They've lost out to some good defence earlier on, then a knock-on ball, now lateral. They need to straighten this line. There's the offload, and Trust Academy will in the end get in for the first try, and probably well deserved. They've been the team that's looked the more likely to score, and they'll put on the first 5 points in this game against the St. John's Bullets.
Definitely have been the more dominant side so far leading up to this point, and they do come up trumps. Just 5 points to 0 to Trust Academy. St. John's second team scratching their heads a little bit under the poles there. I think they just need to trust their structures and trust what their coaches have been training them during the week. And if they don't do that, Trust Academy looks like they're going to capitalise on every mistake that St. John's make.
conversion to come. It's not an easy kick. He's got the distance. He doesn't have the direction. So 5 points to 0. The Trust Academy lead St. John's. And if you turn back play to a couple of phases back, it all started with a scrum, St. John's ball almost on the halfway line, and then an aimless kick by their fly half, giving Trust Academy possession back. And all it did was just put more pressure on the St. John's team. So they haven't been able to hold on to the ball, St. John's. Trust Academy have, and probably the very good reason why they lead this encounter 5 points to 0.
Some good defensive pressure there from St. John's College on Trust Academy. They're going backwards at a rate of knots, and looks like St. John's have managed to turn this ball over. But referee, another penalty to St. John's for not releasing. Not too happy with that quick tap. He just wants to have a word with the Trust Academy players. Interesting to see what they do here, St. John's. Will they take the scrum, or will they go tap and go? If you were the captain, or if you were the coach rather, what would you be shouting to your players to do?
Well, I suppose schoolboy level's a little bit different. Do you trust your line out? If you do, then it's a no-brainer. You got to kick it into touch and set the line up out. Sometimes a scrum is an option if you're not too convinced on your set plays. But the easy out always is just a little tap and go. But they're deciding to go for the line out. So obviously there's an element there of St. John's trusting their line out. There's a little chat amongst the forwards on what the plan is. So they do have a game plan. And it's just critical. And I hope that one of those chats is to ensure that the hooker finds his jumper.
Definitely, St. John's have always been a traditional forward school. One would think they would try and take this off the top of the line out and have a rumbling maul over for a 5-pointer. But they've got to do the basics right, what they haven't done. Virtually no jump from St. John's. A bit of a confusion in the line-out call, and it's given Trust Academy the ability to clear their lines. But St. John's on the attack, and Wings running across field, trying to draw his men in. And he finally takes into contact, made some good yards, and St. John's once again on the front foot ball. Ball swings out wide, onto one of the big men there who only knows forward, and he's breached that gain line, and St. John's need to show a little bit of patience, and that patience should turn into some points relatively quickly.
Oh, this is better play from St. John's. They're holding on to the ball, and they're now 5 yards short of the Trust Academy line, but they might have been held up here, and they're in trouble. It should be scrum down to Trust Academy, and that's good defence. And again, maybe St. John's just a little bit guilty of not offloading the ball. But the line-out was poor. There were no jumpers. I also remember that interesting to see what kind of brand of rugby St. John's do play this season. They've got a new coach, Mark Wilson, who's taken over. Kestel Gertenbach assisting him. He's here today running the Bullets team. So interesting to see what kind of rugby St. John's are going to play this year. I think that their first game next weekend is going to be Carl College, and we saw Carl College get over St. George's first team yesterday, so you write them off at your peril. They've got some good runners, do Carl College, but it's going to be interesting to see what St. John's offer this season. Got away with a knock-on from Trust Academy, so it will be their put-in on the 5-yard line. Another opportunity for them to try and levels the scores out. They decide to go blind, and it's a bit pedestrian, that attack. There's the pickup from one of the forwards, carries it forward, resets it, but it's slow ball for St. John's College. They just got to be careful they don't get penalised here, Trust, and it looks like they have been coming in from the side. So now a penalty. Now's the million-dollar question. Do they kick for that touch line again and try and set up another line out? The one good thing about doing that, no, it's not going to happen. Tap and go. Probably a good move. Gives it to the big forward. And now just a metre short, St. John's College. Close, over the try line, but held up. And that should be a scrum down to St. John's on the 5-yard line.
It's a little bit of It's a strange decision there from the referee.
Surely over the try line, that should be a scrum down to St. John's.
Yeah, if you held up over the try line, you generally do get the ball back to have another attack. It's one of those weird laws that if you can't do your basics well enough, you get a second opportunity to do it. But a little bit of basic rugby knowledge there. That big man from St. John's running far too upright, and it was so easy for the Trust Academy guys to hold them up. But credit to the Trust Academy defence. They've been resilient. They've put their body on the line, and it's still 5 points to 0 to Trust Academy. It doesn't look like they want to give up any easy points today.
Well, in a way, they do have themselves to blame, St. John's, and maybe a little bit more conviction with the ball runners. Like you said, their big prop forward, he was given the ball. Yes, he got over the gain line, but the last move that allowed the player over the try line looked soft. Yes, he got himself over. He was held up, and take nothing away from Trust Academy, it was good defence. But you just like to see a little bit more sort of grit and determination from the St. John's forwards when they carry the ball.
Definitely, and knowing Kestel Gertenbach quite well, he was always a very strong runner, so he would be trying to teach his boys that that's what needs to happen going forward in the season. We got a bit of a break in play, injury being attended to in back play, and we do wish that young man a speedy recovery, whatever injury he has sustained. But going back to earlier there, interesting to see he puts the ball into the scrum, Dirk, and if it is Trust Academy, St. John's have every right to be a little bit upset with that decision.
Yeah, anyway, well, it looks like he's turned it over. The scrum off of St. John's has just gone and taken the ball away, and I'm wondering if they've questioned the referee and he's changed his decision. St. John's now have the put in, and that's the right decision, regardless of pressure from any of the players. But the right decision is that it is St. John's put into the ball. Just checking some blood on one of the players, I think. Their big number 1. And the substitution of the injury is now on the field. So I'll be back to a full complement, will Trust Academy. They lead this game, remember, 5 points to 0.
St. John's would hope to come away from this territorial gain with some points, and if they don't, that confidence level might drop. But a good win there, spreading it out to the back line, who seems to be running at a very, very pedestrian pace, and they're not going to get it very far if they carry on doing that all day. But the big number 8 there, Edwards, running direct, running straight into the traffic. Good pass there off the deck from the scrum off to his big prop forward, and Trust Academy have been found guilty of an indiscretion. And if St. John's want to score points quickly, the scrum off needs to be a little bit quicker with the ball, I think. Ref not happy there with the scrum off's tap. He just wants to have a chat to the 2 captains, trying to get some sportsmanship back in the game. And good to see the 2 players there shaking hands after whatever happened there. Offside penalty to St. John's, and that is a tap and go once again to St. John's. And here goes St. John's prop forward. Better run this time. He's not more as upright as he was last time. And St. John's nearly through the middle, and unlucky to have spilt it at the last minute there.
Well, it looks like the only 2 real ball carriers here are the 2 props, and the rest of them not really so keen to getting into contact. But the 2 props, 2 great carries from them. They just need a little bit more conviction, do St. John's. So Trust Academy again potentially let off the hook. A chance for them to clear their lines. No doubt there's going to be a kick somewhere. And they're under pressure. It's a loose ball, and it's not a very good kick. The centre picks it up. There's a loose play again. He's lucky that one's gone backwards. But they get another chance to set the ball. Now through the hands. Oh, there's a knock-on. That's really poor from St. John's. But it's almost like that cat has 9 lives. Offside, says the referee, so another chance. He's almost wanting to gift St. John's a try. But I'm not so sure that they really want to score it. Another knock-on. Very scrappy rugby here on Jubilee Field between the Hornets and Trust Academy.
Correction there, the Bullets. But St. John's College we spoke about it yesterday. Teams need to show a lot of pressure, especially at schoolboy level. If you consistently apply pressure, ball in hand, do the basics right, eventually that defensive line does crack. And St. John's are a little bit guilty of rushing certain plays, and it's an early change from the coaching staff of St. John's, bringing off the big number 12, who hasn't had a really bad game. Maybe he's being rested for tomorrow's encounter in the first team setup. St. John's, I think they're taking far too much time now to score the points, and if they don't score now, Trust Academy might well run this ball back up the field, and their chance might be over for this half.
Well, it's not like they haven't been given enough chances. The fact that they haven't been able to capitalize on them is only their fault, no one else. Like you said, you get the feeling that they're running out of time in this first half. They've applied all the pressure. Trust have absorbed it and haven't really helped themselves. Now, maybe a chance to see this back line, a rush defense, and looks like a steal from Trust Academy. So a chance now for them to really clear those lines. They put it to boot and take play to the halfway line. Good bounce will help. It does. Still going, Trust Academy. They're not going to catch him, and they'll go the full length of the field and get in for the second try. And to be brutally honest, no one else to blame except St. John's College. They lost the ball. Trust turned it around. A good kick, yes. Maybe the bounce of the ball was fortuitous, but the fullback allowing it to bounce, and they were there. The runners of Trust Academy were there. They picked it up, and they've turned out a potential 10-point swing. But they were under so much pressure in their own half. They conceded, well, nearly conceded a couple of times, and now they're out to a 10-0 lead.
Very good play there from Trust Academy, and maybe it was the proverbial commentator's curse, but they have looked the better team on attack when they do have ball in hand. And St. John's College, a lot of questions to answer under the polls there, and also going into the halftime break. As we see the conversion coming out, he has hooked it, unfortunately. It is 10-0 to Trust Academy. And let's have a replay here. Look at the replay. It was a good kick over the fullback's head. Never let a rugby ball bounce, and it set up quite nicely for his chaser, who needed no second invitation to the try line. And it was a good 5-pointer there for Trust Academy.
So 10-0. And probably not too much time left in the first half. I think that if anything at half time, it's got to be the chat about St. John's getting stuck in. They look laboured. They look tired. They shouldn't be. These schoolboys, they've been in pre-season, we think. But they've looked tired. Trust Academy haven't. They've been full of running. They've been aggressive in attack, and they've thrown their bodies on the line in defence. St. John's Academy, for me, just haven't been committed to the 50-50 ball. They haven't been committed to the go-forward ball. And for that reason, they find themselves 10-0 down.
Definitely, and I think this could be a true underdog story if Trust Academy carry on playing this. But the question that you have to ask is, can Trust Academy keep this intensity up for the full 60 minutes? And if they do, how many more points are they going to score against the St. John side? But line out, not one again, and it is a little bit scrappy ball, but Trust Academy on the attack, and we've seen how dangerous this backline has been. Big burly number 8 storming up the middle of the field, getting some good territory for his team, and good pass out on the wide. They've got some space again. We've seen that you don't give these boys some space, and it's a great run on the outside there, and should be a 5-pointer, and it is. Great try there from Trust Academy, taking that lead out to 15-0. And I know it's a little bit early to say, but 15 points down, do you see St. John's coming back from this?
Well, if Trust Academy keep playing like this, St. John's have got no chance. They just need to do something. They whether it's their ball or not, on defence, they're not committing. And you mentioned about big burly run from the number 8 of Trust Academy. It's exactly what he did, but no one from St. John's is doing it. Yes, maybe he only gained 10 metres, but what he did do was suck in all the defenders, created the overlap on the far side, just had to go through the hands. The other thing that Trust Academy looks like they've got and St. John's don't have is a bit of pace as well. So when you give them a little bit of space to run, they're going to run around you. And the last try, the try scorer, their winger, number 14, skinned the defence of St. John's because of his pace. And on that occasion, the winger of St. John's had no chance because the attacker was past him before he even had an opportunity. That's a good kick, but it's not going to get over the crossbar. So at the moment, that's the only thing keeping the scoreline half decent is that Trust Academy aren't converting their kicks. They've left 9 points out on the field. Well, rather, sorry, 6 points. There's that run from the number 8. Look at the defensive structure of St. John's. It's just nowhere, through the hands. And then just inside, outside. And the winger had absolutely no opportunity. He wasn't going to stop him. He had committed himself. And the attacker getting around the outside. It now takes the score to 15 points to 0 to a well-deserved Trust Academy.
It's a better kickoff from the St. John's player, but a little bit of an early tackle there. Are lucky to get away with it, and referee has adjudicated a knock on. But the previous kickoffs from St. John's College haven't been all that great, and it's allowed the Trust Academy guys to reclaim possession and run back into space because there just hasn't been any chasing. And St. John's, they do look a little bit laboured and a little bit half asleep here. One would think Coach Chiwara and Gertenbach will definitely try and change it in the halftime chat. The one thing is, though, as much as Trust Academy are winning the game 15 points to 0, the St. John's scrum does have the better of their opponents.
Referee's going to reset that one. And if they can work on the strengths that they do have, St. John's, one of them being the scrum, they need to make sure that they win these scrums and out-scrum Trust Academy. They need to make sure from a defensive perspective they're not giving the Trust Academy players space. There goes that number 8 again. And that should be a penalty to St. John's, holding on. It is. I dearly love some kind of points before the halftime hooter here, all the bullets.
Yeah, the number 8 made a great run, but unfortunately, because it was so good, he kept his own team unawares and isolated there, turning ball over once again. And yes, as much as that is the safe option, St. John's line-out hasn't been the greatest this first half. And hopefully the hooker can hit his jumper, they can get some ball back in hand and potentially try and run up the field, because unfortunately you can't score points if you're going to play the game within your own half. St. John's going for a short line out there. They finally hit their jumper, but poor handling skills there.
Well, it was a terrible throw-in. Didn't find the jumper. Well, he did find the jumper, but it found him on the outside of the line-out. So it was woefully unstraight. But it brings a close to the first half, and St. John's would not be happy with their performance in that first half. On the other hand, the Trust Academy side will be very happy with their performance. It's been good. They've run the ball well. They've been committed in attack and defence, whereas St. John's, I'm not too convinced that they have been.
We're going to take a short break and we'll catch you in the second half. Welcome back to the second half here between Trust Academy and St. John's College. On screen, St. John's will be playing from left to right in the second half, and Trust Academy have looked the more dominant side in this game. They are leading 15 points to 0, and I think there would definitely be two different team talks that would have gone on at that halftime break. One being, boys, we need to play structures, we need to keep the ball, we can't make our own mistakes. And the other team talk would have been, let's carry on doing more of the same.
I think as well is that if I was the coach of St. John's, my one comment would be, let's get our clothes dirty, boys. They're not doing that either. They're not really getting stuck in, and they're playing straight into the hands of Trust Academy, who are loving to run with the ball. They're loving to be physical, and they're throwing their bodies on the line. And St. John's have just been wanting at every breakdown, every attacking play, and even in defence. That's good hands. It wasn't a great pass, but good hands from Trust Academy. They now approach the halfway line. Remember, they lead 15 points to 0, so they definitely have the go-forward ball here. Maybe guilty there of not passing the ball, and there's a break in play, and Trust Academy maybe just a bit too excited for a bit of individual glory. And they had numbers on the near side. They should have just kept going through the hands.
Definitely, and I definitely think their coach would have given them the license to play some attacking creative rugby. They haven't been shy to run the ball at all this afternoon, and they've started the second half much how they ended the first half. St. John's have got scrum here, and they have been dominant. That's one thing they have done well. So now they just got to do everything else correctly. And ball, a little bit of a soft pass out to the centre there, who has made it look a lot better than what it was, and he's got the team back on the front foot ball, and it is a penalty there for Trust Academy going off their feet. But St. John's scrum half needs to be a lot quicker if he wants to play with the ball. He can't wait for Trust Academy to make mistakes like that.
Well, I think that was a little bit better from St. John's College. Number 12, it took it into contact. He ran with the ball. He had some momentum with him. Maybe question the fact that he came back inside and didn't try and get it out to the wing. But a little bit more aggression from St. John's. And that will a good start to the second half. Now the line out just short of the Trust Academy 22, and a chance for St. John's to really try and build something here. And you'd like to think that if they want to stay in this game, they're going to have to score first in the second half.
Definitely will have to score first, and their line-out has been woeful. They finally have hit their jumper, and a wayward pass from the scrum half there, putting his centre under all sorts of pressure, who has slipped under his own feet. And St. John's were nearly on the 22. They're nearly back on the halfway line. They need to get some sort of go-forward ball, and it's a better run by the St. John's College forwards. Good hands there, out wide, taking it direct, and it's a good clean out. Referee playing advantage to St. John's. They got a bit of a license to throw this ball around. He has called him back for a penalty, but it is more positive rugby, you would say, Dirk, from the St. John's side.
It is much better, and straight away the coaching staff stopping the quick tap and telling him to kick to touch, get even closer to that try line. Their line out, the last one, was really good. The scrum half's pass to the fly half was poor, so no momentum at all. Well, that's a great kick from St. John's. Takes play deep into Trust Academy's half, 5 meters short, and if they can have the same set on the scrum, on the line out rather again, every chance that St. John's will score first in the second half.
Definitely, we have seen that have got go forward ball every time they've gone down to scrum, so if the hooker can hit his jumper, maybe the good old-fashioned maul would be the way that St. John's score their first points in this half. They haven't had their own way in these lineouts, and finally this hooker is hitting his mark. They've set up that maul. It looks really well structured, trying to get the ball to the back, but body position there from some of the St. John's forward isn't the greatest. They are still moving forward, driving closer and closer to that line, and Trust Academy have done well to stop that, but the referee has deemed it was an illegal collapse and awarded the penalty to St. John's. And much like the first half, penalty after penalty, St. John's on the attack again. Can they score some points? They look very laboured in that attack. That's a good hit from the Trust Academy midfield, immediately trying to get in there, and it looks like they won a very good turnover, but the referee has seen it another way, and St. John's College playing a bit laboured. Looks like the scrum half doesn't quite know what he needs to do, and there's that centre we mentioned earlier who is running with more purpose but dropped the ball there and giving the ball back to Trust Academy, put it up the field, and it's how they scored their second try. Kick and chase, but well recovered from St. John's, who again has just dropped the ball unnecessarily, but referee is playing advantage for St. John's, and it is a penalty for a high tackle.
Well, they've got to be careful, Trust Academy, that they don't keep giving away these penalties. It makes, one, the game scrappy, but more importantly, it just puts them under pressure. They've just got to be careful. So they'll kick for touch again. It's been all St. John's in the second half, but they just haven't been able to put that final dot on the I, and that being the 5-point try. They've come close on a couple of occasions, especially in the first half, and there they were again, and now another chance for them to rebuild. I'd like to think if they continue holding on to the ball, continue doing the basics well, then they've got every chance that they can score here against Trust Academy.
Absolutely. The hooker has seemed to have found his mark in the first two lineouts of this half. St. John's would be hoping to hit the line, his jumper again. It's not happy there with the gap on St. John's, and potentially this could be disrupted. But lack of communication from the St. John's side there, a bit of confusion. Hooker feeds this ball in, he's won it, he's found his jumper really well. They've set up that maul again, but again Dirk goes back to, you can see some of the body position of the St. John's forwards, they're far too high, and that's probably why they're not going as far forward as what they would like.
Well, they've got to be careful that they're not offsides here, Trust Academy. It comes out finally down the line, and it's a bit of a hospital pass. Play on, says the ref, so a chance again for St. John's to rebuild.
Centre Alex Cologne there running forward. At least he knows what he needs to do, and there's the big prop forward, Ben Harris. He doesn't need a second invitation to take it into contact. Some good phase player from St. John's through the hands to Edwards, running about with a little bit of space there, and St. John's just need to continue to be patient. They have been guilty of their fly-off not giving the greatest of passes to his outside centre, and that's put pressure on them. But referee Karoka, and yet another penalty to St. John's. How many more penalties are they going to get before they're able to score some points?
I think again their problem is exactly what we spoke about. There's no conviction. Even the back line, the passes are poor, there's no go forward ball. So apart from Trust Academy giving away the penalties, which just keeps giving St. John's more opportunity, it's not a very difficult team to defend against. The passes need to be crisper. The players need to be hitting the ball at pace, or at least looking at trying to do something. At the moment it's just too easy for them. So, Ryan McKenzie has been the substitute in the hooker position. The lineouts have been a lot better as he's been finding his jumpers, but he can only do so much because unfortunately the rest of his team just can't get over the whitewash. This one doesn't find a jumper, so it's a scrappy loose ball. Better defense from St. John's, they're on it, but we're not so sure who's got it. I think Trust Academy does, but can they clear their lines? They go to the boot and they find the touchline, but only as far as the 22. So another opportunity again for St. John's to attack. It wasn't a very good line out. It was a good steal from Trust Academy, but there's an opportunity here. The concern would be is that the longer that they take to actually put any score on the board, they trail by 15. It's 3 tries. They need to find some kind of points soon.
Ball out to the flyer for Ramasoni, who's finally found a better pass there, giving it to his man David Yosa, who is at least running with some purpose. Spoke about it. He looks like he wants to get his hands dirty, which is a good thing for the St. John's team, provided that he gets some good go-forward ball. But Trust Academy putting in a great defensive effort there and holding the player up. And if St. John's are not lucky, they could turn the ball over here, and they have. And Trust Academy keep on absorbing all this pressure. And you cannot take credit away from them. They have put in a good defensive effort. They put in a good attacking effort. They just look a lot more hungrier to be playing this game than St. John's do.
Well, now a real chance for them to clear those lines. Their kicks haven't been great, Trust Academy. One resulted in a clearance kick, which resulted in a try. It was a bit of a lucky bounce. But a little bit more structure from a scrum will allow them. Number 8 picks it up. He's had some great runs and he's quick as well. He decides to go himself. He's running away from support. There's the man, and it's well picked up by the try scorer. He scored 1 try already. Goes into the 22, then number 14. Support runners were there, but referee is going to call them back for a penalty. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a yellow card for a professional foul, diving on the ball. And exactly that. So insult to injury. It's been St. John's. It's pretty similar to the first half. They've been deep inside Trust Academy's half, and they've been pushing hard. They haven't been able to get over the try line. And all of a sudden, they lose a player, and now they're under real pressure. If Trust Academy score here, I can't imagine St. John's coming back at all in this encounter.
Definitely not. And again, some good hand. Well, about to sing the praise of Trust Academy of some good hands, but taking his eye off the ball there a little bit too early, and it has gifted the ball back to St. John's, who will be kicking themselves. They were camped in the Trust Academy's half for a good 10 minutes or so. I would say of that, probably 7 or 8 have been in the 22, yet they're on their own 22-meter line. No points to show for it. Defensive scrum, backline that doesn't look like they want to run the ball, and they've got a lot of hard work to do here. But even with the man down, they still look dominant in the scrum. They give it to their big centre, who is Tawana Maponi, who puts it boot to ball and has found a decent enough touch. Takes play just outside, just in front of the St. John's 10-meter line. Trust Academy finally have got a feet to the line out and can see what they have to offer in the forward game.
Well, it's a good clearance. The question, however, is in the current status of the game, you trail 15 points to 0 on whether or not you can afford to kick it into touch if you want to win this game. Remember that these halves are only 25 minutes each, so you don't have a lot of time. You trail 15 points to 0. There's a good steal. And so the good news is they've won the ball back. Now they need to build something to allow some kind of opportunity to score a try. That's a better run from St. John's as they approach the halfway line. But a kick, and all he's done is lobbed it to the centre of Trust Academy. Pick up, loose ball, and it's the substitute centre, number 22, who takes it into the Trust Academy 22. Not so many numbers on the near side, and there's the drop ball, but they're going to come back for a penalty, I think. Maybe that was the reason why he didn't go that way, because they were all in the way, were Trust Academy. But pretty speculative kick again, which probably wasn't the best decision from St. John's, but they've got away with it. Now a chance for them to set that line out again and try one more time at the Trust Academy line.
I've been impressed with young Tawana Mapani since he's come on early in the first half. He really has shown some incentive to attack, go forward, try to get his team on the front foot ball, and he looks like the real X factor in this back line. It's just unfortunate that St. John's at critical times have made basic handling errors, and they only have themselves to blame for this position that they put themselves in. It is 15 points to 0 to Trust Academy, and if St. John's don't score here, it'll be a long road for them. And it'll be something for the newspapers to write about again. Their first team lost to Lamagandi. Their second team potentially will lose to Trust Academy. The papers will be alight tomorrow morning if it goes the way of Trust Academy.
Wow, deserved winners. And I can't see Trust Academy losing this one. It's put into the scrum. Yes, maybe the one area that Trust Academy can work on is their discipline. Second half hasn't been very good. They've given away a couple of penalties and put themselves under pressure. They're probably lucky that St. John's haven't been really good on attack.
Trust Academy looking to run their ball out from their 22 with the inside ball that hasn't gone to hand, but referee Kuroka has deemed it to have come off the leg, and Trust Academy are storming up the field yet again. again, just patience is not quite with them. They're a little bit too eager to attack, and it has given possession back to St. John's, but this game seems to be played either on the halfway line or in Trust Academy's 22. And credits to the Trust Academy side and coaching staff. They have really drilled these boys well, and Trust Academy look like they want the game a lot more than St. John's College. St. John's got the put in there. So looks like a more solid platform, and it's given out wide to the St. John's backline. Alex Cologne running forward, making some good yards. He doesn't look like he's shy of contact, and he's taken play just over the halfway line, but referee Karuka, penalty yet again to St. John's College.
Well, that was that ill discipline that we've been talking about from Trust Academy, not needed. But you'd like to think they're going to have to run everything, and that's just poor knock-on from St. John's. No, that's not very good. So it will be a reprieve for Trust Academy that given away the penalty, and now an opportunity for them to try and rebuild something.
We see in the front of the screen there the yellow card has come back onto the field, so St. John's are lucky to not have conceded points while that man was in the sin bin, but St. John's gifting possession back to Trust Academy, and we've seen when Trust Academy have ball in hand, they structure their game really well. They get up the field and they do what St. John's have failed to do. They put points on the board. It's a good ball out wide there to their number 9, who has looked full of running all afternoon, but a little bit guilty there running laterally and not giving his teammate enough space to run into, and St. John's easily using the touchline as the last defender. And hopefully for the St. John's coaching's sake, their forwards will win this line out and potentially try attack once more. But I don't see them scoring any points from the way they've played so far in this game, Dirk.
You'd like to think that they deserve probably one for their efforts. Changing direction, I'm not so sure. He had a full line out of backs on the near side and changing direction straight back into traffic, and there's another mistake again, a little knock on from St. John's, so another chance for Trust Academy.
Starting to sound like a very, very stuck record. It's just poor handling errors from the St. John's College side, and they have only got themselves to blame for the position they're in. But Trust Academy there, the ball in it, looked like a tight hit to St. John's, but referee has called it back. Not too happy with what happened there. This young man, Ryan McKenzie, he's only 17 years old. He is one to look forward to the future, and if the coaching staff of St. John's look after him well, he potentially could be playing for the Rams pretty soon. And you can see there he's still fighting for the ball, but Trust Academy win it. And there's that 8th man once again on the break. Chicken wing pass out the back door, putting Trust Academy on the front foot ball. And all Trust Academy need to do here is play a patient game, set up your phases, because every time you run with the ball, you're continuously getting over the gain line.
Well, they got numbers on the near side, and May is loose, but they managed to hold on to the ball, and they'll have to rebuild it from here. And all this is doing as well is eating time from the clock. Referee will call them back for a knock-on from Trust Academy on this occasion, and St. John's will have the put into the scrum, but it's fair to say that it's been pretty scrappy the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Absolutely, it isn't the same Trust Academy side that played in the first half. I did speak about that. It does look like they're getting a little bit tired now. Unfortunately, St. John's have left it a little bit too late to try and play that fitness game and take the game from a fitness perspective. But St. John's got the ball at the scrum here. They have been dominant going forward. Do you think this is one last throw of the dice? But their fly half, who's come on, looks very laboured, and It's a bit of a nothing kick that's gifted possession back to Trust Academy, and there's that try scorer. But he's met with some great defence, and once again, Trust Academy on the front foot, barreling up the field. And say it again, patience, and they should be able to get close to the St. John's try line again.
Well, I question the game plan of St. John's. I've done it on a couple of occasions. They just kicked the ball away. Very silly. And Trust Academy now. Slow ball, but they've still got it. That's what's important. They try the long pass out wide now. They've got a little bit of space. The referee is going to call them back. I'm not so sure what that was all about. Is that a knock-on?
Looks like he has deemed it to be a forward pass, but St. John's are not looking at all interested in playing this game at the moment. There's just no impetus. They don't want to run onto the ball. When they're tackling, they're letting players run at them, and 15-0 probably isn't the fairest scoreline to Trust Academy, who have played the better game in this match. St. John's on the attack once more on the left flank. At least they're going forward slowly but surely. They are getting up the field, but they don't look like they've got any drive to run the ball at pace.
Our referee, like we said, the one saving grace for St. John's is Trust Academy's kept them in the game. They've kept giving penalties away, and maybe one last chance for St. John's to put something on the board, but the passes are poor. My hands aren't very good, and they've got some work to do when they get back to school on Tuesday. Do the Bullets. Now trying to throw it wide. Not really going anywhere are St. John's. And Trust Academy throwing their bodies on the line. Poor pass. Putting their players under pressure. And there's the whistle again. Guess what? Offsides. Penalty. St. John's.
Absolutely. And it's a poor tap there from St. John's College. It's the story of the game for them. They definitely haven't had the luck of the green at all. And it's gifted possession back to Trust Academy, who have always looked hungry when they got ball in hand, and that definitely has been the difference between the two sides there. Referee calling them back for a knock-on there. And St. John's, I say it again, the way they've been playing, it doesn't look like they're going to get any further up the field than possibly Trust Academy's 22-metre line.
Well, unless Trust Academy keep giving them penalties, and there's every chance. I'd like to think that this game is nearly at its completion. Remind me how we did a Bullets game the other day. You remember who it was against? They played a lot better than they've played today.
I can't really remember the opposition, but they did come out winners in that game, and it's definitely been a chalk and cheese performance. John's throwing one last throw of the dice. Much better kick there, finding some space, and the wing is tearing after this. Can he get his hands on the ball? He has, and finally St. John's are over. A little bit of a consolation try there, one would think, taking the score 15 points to 5, but case of too little, too late. Great try there by Callan Wilk. Kick is only as good as his chase, eh, Dirk?
Well, I think that was the problem with the kick earlier, when we were saying, why are you kicking the ball? All you're doing is kicking it back to Trust Academy. On that occasion, he put some oomph in it, and he kicked it behind them, which meant that he had to turn around and chase. Unfortunately for Trust Academy, he did have the ball in his hand and then dropped it, and Wilk was able to pick it up and dot it down. But they'll be kicking themselves, St. John's, the Bullets, on opportunities squandered, and maybe not totally committed to the game, and they're going to go down here. It's a good kick from the St. John's kicker. Maybe they have another one or two opportunities to come back as deep into the second half. St. John's Academy trail Trust Academy 15 points to 7. He has another look. There's a much better kick. It's run all the way to the try line. Unfortunately for Trust, it didn't actually reach the try line, but there was that little catch and missed, and Wilk was there to pick it up and score the try. So 15 points to 7. Remember, they've still got to score twice.
Much better take there from the restart, and St. John's are off yet again, throwing a speculative pass there, and the referee has deemed that as a forward pass. St. John's have looked like a different side today. Much difference to how they have played in this week, and definitely coaches have got their hands on their heads and off the screen. They also don't know what exactly has happened today. Scrum there to Trust Academy, though. They're going backwards at a rate of knots, and it's a scrappy ball for Trust Academy, but they've got one last opportunity there, and a good tackle from the try scorer Wilk, and Trust Academy keeping the ball in hand, setting up their phases. It looks like they are playing a lot. It's becoming a lot more unstructured as the game has gone on, and that is the end of the game. And Trust Academy, much deserved winners, one would think.
Yeah, St. John's laboured. They weren't really up for this fixture. They looked like they didn't really want to be here. They didn't get stuck in. There were glimpses of opportunity that they had. They squandered it themselves, and they would be their own to blame for not scoring more tries. It wasn't that they were short of chances to score. Trust Academy, big heart. They put in a big effort and well-deserved winners. In the end, they get over St. John's second team here on the Jubilee field, 15 points to 7. Don't go very far. Our next game is Prince Edward Seconds up against St. George's Seconds. We expect a great encounter. Don't go too far.
Boys, let's go. Let's cut.
Good afternoon and welcome to the last game of the 2019 Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival. Prince Edward Seconds versus St. George's College Seconds team. And Prince Edward Seconds will be looking to assert their dominance. It should be a very interesting game. We know that Prince Edward tend to play with a lot of flair. But once again, St. George's will come through with their structured play. And so different types of rugby coming and clashing on the same field of play, Des.
Absolutely, and this is definitely a traditional rivalry. Two oldest boys' schools in the country, a lot to play for. It's the first of 3 fixtures of this season, and one would think that whoever wins this game today potentially will take the upper hand going into their encounter 2 or 3 weeks into term.
Oh yes, most definitely, and we'll be looking forward to all that action as it comes. But as we concentrate here, Prince Edward will start the game for us here. A nice hanging kick, but St. George's will take it very cleanly here and will look to push forward as they get the ball out. Now, a question of maybe running the ball down the line would be a better option, but some fantastic leg drive coming through from St. George's College there, and I'm sure that will give a whole lot of confidence as they go into the match against Prince Edward.
Absolutely, but they're playing far too deep and behind the gain line, and yes, penalty there given to Prince Edward. Referee deeming that was a bit of an obstruction there, but that's what happens when you're playing far too deep. You've got runners in front of you, and 9 times out of 10 refs will call them for obstruction.
And so, of course, they go for the best option, which is to kick the ball out to touch, and they should back their lineouts here and close to the 22 of St. George's College Seconds here. You kind of feel that Prince Edward are ready to launch an attack, and they do have a very speedy winger that I believe that's Krishna there wearing number 11 rather, as you can see in the screen. So the ball now coming down the line there, a lovely pop pass, and it breaks through the defensive line, and it looks like it's going to be try time for Prince Edward here. But it looks like he was held up there. Not so sure if the Prince Edward boys are going to be happy with that, but we're going to look at the replay there to see how they were held up there, Prince Edward. It looked pretty clear that it should have been a try there, but after all is said and done, sometimes if you're just a little bit whimsical about how you're going to go into the try box, you can get held up this.
It's not the first time we've seen PE nearly bottle a try, and they have bottled a couple this tournament, both first and second team. And he has the replay there of the run. It looked sure that he had scored it, but St. George's defender got himself underneath there and held that ball up. Great defense by the St. George's effort, but leading up to that run was a bit of poor tackling.
And now Prince Edward here going for a scrum, but a pretty good scrum from St. George's. Looks like coming down the blind side. A very poor pass goes behind their winger there, and St. George's look to recover the ball. And apparently it was a knock-on from St. George's College Seconds there. It will be scrummed down and Prince Edward's ball.
One would think that Coach Sean D'Souza and Tula Jimu would definitely be teaching both first and second team how you score a try. Unfortunate that 18-year-old boys don't know how to just drop down over the line. They've bundled a few, remember?
Yeah, and when they bundle a few there, it also just tends to give the opposition there as well a little bit of confidence to just kind of back themselves in terms of their defense. And I'm sure St. George's here will want to do that. The ball coming out of the scrum there, not so sure what's happening there. It looks like it's a maul situation, but finally pushed into touch. Not so sure where the line out will be going there, since the players were really covering the play. But it looks like the linesman here is pointing to Prince Edward winning that line out. And once again, they have another opportunity to maybe repeat the move, so to speak.
Looks like they've changed their mind there and they try to set up a maul. But one thing you do pride St. George's College on is their forward play. But they've set this back line alight, and we know how silky smooth their runners are. And there's the danger man, Krishna, with ball in hand. He knows his way to the try line, that's for sure. Good defensive efforts for St. George's College, but patience here for PE, and hopefully they come with the 5-pointer. And finally, they've got the ball over the line, and the fullback there probably will tell his teammates, lessons, Thursdays 4 to 5, I'll teach you how to score a try.
And that's exactly how it's done. So it's try time for Prince Edward here, and the Prince Edward seconds are going to be taking the lead here. Pretty interesting to see. Their jerseys are labeled, is it old boys there? Not so sure how old they are, but but it was a good try. And looking at the replay there, wonderful play from Krishna there, and then the pickup, and finally the fullback with the sidestep, getting 2 players out of his way and finally slamming the ball in the try box there. Not so sure who's going to be converting here. We saw Kudakwasha Makoni doing it before, but this time round it looks like it is him as well. Whether he'll be able to get the ball over. It is a very difficult angle that he's kicking from. A right foot, you have to get the ball in the right direction, work with the wind and all sorts, get the power and the distance. And once again, his technique will be questioned here if he doesn't get it over.
Much better strike there, but he's just pushed it out right. And St. George's College did put him under a bit of pressure there. It was a good attempt at stopping the conversion, and they did manage to do so. It is 5 points to 0 to Prince Edward's second team. And look, St. George's haven't had it their own way. Yes, we're only 5 minutes into the game, but they have been on the back foot. Hopefully they can put this deep into the Prince Edward half and put them under pressure for once. Poor handling there from the kickoff from Prince Edward, and St. George's storming through the ruck there, but referee Jacques Carapano has deemed that St. George's have dived over the top there, and Prince Edward not taking it correctly from the mark, and the ref calling them back. And it has been a story that has been written many games before this. Scrum halves are just not really paying attention to where the mark is.
Yeah, really not. And it really isn't a question of whether they know the rules or not, but just a rush of blood to the head there. But finally, maybe some sanity prevails and they kick for touch. Clear your lines. You really don't want to run your ball out of your own 22, and we consistently say this because it's a basic of rugby. But going into touch, the line out goes to Prince Edward, and once again they've got an opportunity to attack the St. George's line.
Definitely, and a bit of a poor line out there. They are lucky to win that back, Prince Edward. So Prince Edward again on the front foot, a big ball out wide to the try scorer. You mentioned that danger man Krishna, who does like to take the ball into contact, but St. George's so far matching up in defence, and again PE got the ball. That's a poor pass behind him and he had to juggle it, and St. George's would want to try and flood this ruck, but Prince Edward have won the ball back. Again on the front foot ball, spreading it wide, too much space for the man to run into, and yet one more time it's just poor mistakes at the wrong time for the attacking team. I have sung that number 2's praises the whole tournament. He has looked like he has a good pass, but that one unfortunately is human. He does make mistakes and he passed a little bit too far behind his player.
Yeah, a little bit too far behind, as well as the height of that pass as well was a little bit suspect. Now St. George's get their first line out. It comes out pretty good. Zuze with a good pass, but unfortunately poor handling error from his fly off there, and I'm sure he's going to be livid with this fly off there. It was well weighted. It was a well passed ball, but unfortunately not handling it quite well at that point. So it will be scrummed down and Prince Edward ball here. And once again, they can set their line alight if they get the ball through the scrum, and they are not really challenged by St. George's College.
Yeah, definitely. St. George's College, though, do pride themselves on their forward prowess. They would want to disrupt this ball for Prince Edward, and if they have a bit of a shaky scrum, that backline is not as dangerous, is probably what they've been thinking as the St. George's forward pack.
So finally the ball comes out once again. Prince Edward have got a dummy run and they get the pass through here. The first center, that's Kudakwashe Makoni, with wonderful leg drive now into the 22 of St. George's College, and the ball will be swung out most likely here, but it's another pick and go to just gain more territory, and very good thinking by Prince Edward right now. And they look now to stretch the St. George's College defense here, but unfortunately not yet creating an overlap, but now accelerating to try and create the overlap, but it's a little bit too late, and they will have to swing the ball back to the near side once again.
Definitely took a little bit too long to get the ball out wide, but there's that centre who loves to run with the ball, and he knows his way forward. He's put his team on the front foot ball, and referee Jacques Rapano consistent. He pinned St. George's player earlier, and Zuze capitalizing on that penalty, setting his team off, and unfortunately a little bit isolated, but he does have a good pass as his little scrum off, and one would think that with some years put into him, he could become a player for the future. Penalty there for holding on, being isolated, and Prince Edward again got ball in hand.
Prince Edward here maybe not making the best decision running into traffic there, but it is a quick tap and go moving from here. Lucky not to be a knock on there, but wonderful line speed from St. George's to try and put pressure on Prince Edward, but this time round they're able to let go, and they're coming down the wing here. They had an overlap, but Eighthman puts the ball down. It is try time once again for the Prince Edward seconds there, and you could just see that the St. George's defense was being stretched right there, and they got the opportunity, and because of good line speed, good attacking line speed, Prince Edward were able to put the ball down.
Absolutely, they are taking this lead up to 10 points. Kick to come, pretty similar.
Here comes the...
Here's a replay of the try there. Good drawn pass, good hands, and eighth man knew exactly what he needs to do. But there's a sense of deja vu here for Gorhamonzi. He has had a kick from here before. Maybe this first one was a marker, the second one will be a sighter, and the third one will be through. I don't know.
Hoping that he will do a little bit better here, but I'll be a little bit concerned about his technique once again. It is somewhat football in nature, and you kind of feel that as long as you do that, you don't get the amount of distance as well as the kind of direction that you need for this conversion. And he is going to come around for the kick. It's going to be a short jab, a stab at it. It looks pretty good, but unfortunately, once again, he doesn't make it on that kick. So the direction was a little bit better this time round, but once again, the issue of the technique, if it's a short stab at the ball, you really don't get to control its direction, and that's exactly what's happening. But Prince Edward seconds taking the 10-0 lead against St. George's College seconds, and we're ready for the restart here. A nice high-hanging kick, but maybe not enough runners on the ball there, not enough pressure from St. George's College seconds. And again, Prince Edward running from their own 22, but Prince Edward losing the ball in contact. Luckily for them, it was backwards, but St. George's picking up the ball here and now wanting to go onto the front foot, which they really haven't had since the start of the game. Here comes the ball again, and they decide to go into contact. And the ball goes backwards, but St. George's would like to penetrate once again, running back into contact, and Prince Edward contesting at the ruck there. Pretty poor handling. Prince Edward will take advantage of this knock-on, and their big burly flank comes through, loses the ball in contact as well. Not so sure if the advantage is going to be handed to St. George's there, but at the end of the day, St. George's have the ball here, and finally it looks like, because of holding onto the ball there, it is a penalty that will go to Prince Edward seconds.
St. George's would feel a little bit unlucky there. It looked like their PE had knocked the ball on the cricket pitch. And it's a shocking kick, an absolute howler. And it's St. George's will count their lucky stars there. They get an opportunity to reset, 22-meter dropout. Referee just consulting with his AR there, asking, is it a 22 dropout? And it looks like it is, but going back to it, St. George's would feel a bit hard done by it to giving that penalty away, and some people might think that Gorhamonzi looks like he was probably the first time he's ever played rugby for that kick. It was a howler, remember?
It was really, really bad. Looked very ugly. Actually went like an ugly duckling, but Nonetheless, St. George's here able to get a 22 dropout, and they'll look to just clear their lines. It's another nice high-hanging kick, but the issue around their line speed in terms of rushing to Prince Edward and putting them under pressure hasn't been too good. And once again, Prince Edward just have the advantage here, and a nice thing to see a big forward breaking through there.
It's always fun watching. They do call it up north in the UK fat boy rugby. It is good to see that. Showing some great skills there, good dummy, and he's getting his team on the front foot ball. And good hands there from that young man. He isn't a bad player, despite his kick. He has got some skills on him, and it's an easy, well, what seemed to be an easy run. But again, they have bundled yet another try, remember. It is unacceptable. If I was the coach here, I would be tearing my hair out, and I think I know why Sean D'Souza potentially is bald.
Well, I'm sure this audio won't get to him anytime soon. But talking about that does not campaign for you to get into the Tigers first team. You really can't do that. It was an easy try. Maybe could have stepped back inside. They were 1v1 at that moment, and you just kind of feel better decision making in those kinds of situations will help you. And looking at the replay here, I mean, you've dropped one man, you've dropped another tackle, 1v1 with the individual there, and then you go on and you lose the ball in contact. That's really, really poor. But anyway, St. George's finally get some reprieve here as they were able to kick out of their own 22, but the ball goes into touch just outside their 22, and you kind of feel they will still be under pressure from Prince Edward.
Definitely there, and St. George's trying to throw some jumpers up. They have won the ball back, and unfortunately Prince Edward not being as clinical as what they would want to be. It gives St. George's back the ball, and St. George's running with it. A little bit of a dummy pass there, and on the front football, and the referee there just trying to get the play off the ball there. St. George's want the ball. They have won it back, and another opportunity to attack, but they look very flat-footed here, remember, and if you're going to play rugby like that, you are going to go backwards all day long.
Oh yes, most definitely. You kind of feel that a kick is needed at this kind of a point here to try and see if they can just go behind the defensive line of Prince Edward here. And because of that, it looks like there was a forward pass from St. George's College seconds there, and that will be scrummed down and Prince Edward ball. And you really feel that this is another opportunity for them to take another try and extend the lead here, because their line speed has been great. They've really been penetrating St. George's back line here at will.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that St. George's can hold their heads up high about is the fact that their scrum has been dominant. We see another powerful scrum coming in there, but he have managed to win the ball back. They set that back line off again, and through the hands, simple drawn pass, but he takes it into contact. St. George's trying to get in there and disrupt the ball, and they have done, and putting pressure on Prince Edward, but the referee there deeming side entry from St. George's College, and there's that quick tap yet again. Prince Edward on the front football again, and easy as you like. That 8th man scored a brace. It's just poor tackling, unfortunately, from the St. George's team.
Very poor tackling, and I mean, pretty poor defensive lines. It looks like they were actually still asleep at the time when the quick tap came through, and we're going to see once the replay actually comes across that it seems like they were actually walking with their backs towards Prince Edward. Very lucky. Back in our days, we were actually encouraged to hit people if their backs against you. Now, looking at the replay there, the scrum off very, very quick to where the referee was. A quick tap and go, and as you can see, backs to Prince Edward, and there was nobody there to stop the 8th man, and he went over for the try.
Well, Kurakwashi Makoni, he's a little bit further in field now, but still on the same side. I did call it earlier. He's had a marker. He's had a sighter. Can he get this through for the 2 points that it takes? Prince Edward up to 15 points to 0 with the kick to come, and you would like to think that his kicking radar is in full force now, having practiced this twice so far, remember.
I put my $4 on it. I should be able to clear my arrears from yesterday that he won't be able to make it.
He has pushed it, and fortunately, I'm no longer in the pound seat anymore. There probably will be another phase and play that I can win my 4 bond notes back again, but St. George's College just look a little bit fractured in defence and attack, and before they know it, the score has climbed to 15 points to 0. We have played about 19 minutes in this first half. It's a much better kick, good height on there, and good chase from St. George's College, but unfortunately knock on. PE on the attack once again, and we've seen that when they on the attack they only go forward, they never go backwards. But a shocking pass there, and poor handling error. They were a little bit lucky that they had an advantage on their side to try and throw caution to the wind.
Oh yes, and just looking at the images right now, on the far side I got to see Coach Sean D'Souza here. He's sitting by one of the benches there, just discreetly under some shades, but I picked him up. And maybe he might be just focusing and looking at some of the youngsters, maybe that he might consider for the technical for his bench, especially when we look at the derby that's coming through tomorrow against Churchill Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's something we have seen, but Zimbabwean schoolboy coaches are poor at using their bench, so maybe not. Anyway, Prince Edward got the ball. There's that man Makoni, who does have a good skills on him. And there's Krishna running with some purpose. And unfortunately, if you do not attack the defense, well, the defense don't attack the attack, you're going backwards all day. They need to be quicker on their line speed to try and shut down this pacey backline that Prince Edward have.
Most definitely. And now we did talk about the quality here that St. George's would have in terms of their forward play. Have been very dominant in the scrums. I would have loved to see them actually have more phase play as compared to try and match the line speed of Prince Edward. You know that their defensive and attacking line speed would have been well drilled by the likes of Coach Sean D'Souza and Tawanda Jimu there, who are part of the technical bench. So you don't want to try and play them at their strength. You want to play them at their weakness, and you want to attack them at their weakness. And unfortunately, St. George's are not getting that right.
Yeah, St. George's College just not reading that play. It was a premeditated move to swing the ball out wide, and there's that pace of that man. And it is a try again to Prince Edward School. However, the problem is there, like I said, a wide ball swung out wide, and no defenders there, leaving acres of space for Prince Edward to run into. Takes the score up to 20 points to 0, and one would think that Makoni will definitely slot this for the 2 points. It's too easy a bet to take, so remember, you're lucky I'm not going to do it.
You never know. You really never know. I mean, we've seen quite a number of kicks missed in front of posts, but this one actually goes through. So the Prince Edward Seconds now take a 22-0 lead against the St. George's College Seconds. And looking at that replay, what a wonderful run coming through from the young man there. And unfortunately, the tackle was to no avail from St. George's College Seconds there. And they really, really have to start playing to their strengths. Play some phase play. I mean, get your forwards coming in there, recycle the ball. They've been doing that pretty well. Their lineouts have been okay. Prince Edward hasn't been too great on their lineouts. So try and get some set pieces there. And approximately 3 to 4 missed tackles there. And finally bringing the man down there. So some wonderful leg drive coming through from Prince Edward Seconds. And here comes the ball down the line. A poor pass behind them. And once again, you kind of feel, oh, goodness me. The ball comes out again to Krishna. But he popped it up to his one of their loose heads. And finally, he was pushed into touch. And so this will be a line out for St. George's College Seconds just past the halfway line. And surely by now, they should be able to run the ball down the line and try get some face play going.
Definitely, but we have seen when they had ball in hand, they have looked very pedestrian. So hopefully they play, but it's a good line-out win there. Great throw, great jump, great take, and finally St. George's College are on the front foot. Just doing a little bit of a move there. And there's that fullback we spoke about all week. He's full of running. He's a good player.
And
Number
here
10.
comes the fly off here now. And now close to the 22 and running the ball a bit better down the line. But not so sure what's going on there. And that is an intercept by Prince Edward. And it's the big forward. And he comes through with a big hit against, oh goodness me, against St. George's College. You can hear the cheers in the background there. It's always good to see some fat rugby, as you said, Des.
Definitely, and unfortunately, just throwing a no-look pass here by St. George's, basic errors, and Prince Edward have been able to turn the ball over. But we have seen in the past with St. George's College, when they have put a little bit of pressure on this attack, their skill set of Prince Edward haven't been too good. But that's a great pass out the back door there. Unfortunately, that last one going a bit behind his player, putting him on the back foot, and Prince Edward having a field day here, but the ref there calling him back for a forward pass. The number 8 hoping to get his hat-trick and get his Simbisa Brands voucher, but unfortunately it's not meant to be today.
Do we have a shot at getting that voucher though, Des?
I think that if the commentators can predict who scores the hat-trick, we should also get a voucher.
Seeing that you're in there with a shout, I guess we won't allow them to give you one. But this time round, it will be another scrum down, and because of that forward pass from Prince Edward, it will be for St. George's College here, who are smack dab on the 22-yard line there. It's going to be interesting to see how this scrum goes as well. So far, they have been dominating, and it's a good scrum. Lovely feed. Zuze with the ball out here, but I feel like as if they don't really know what they really want to do here. I mean, stuttering in terms of their run. Finally, the ball comes out here. Does he have enough pace to go past Krishna? Unfortunately, he doesn't, and there's a good challenge from Prince Edward at the ruck there. Tried to go for the kick. Prince Edward charge it down. And they charge it down, and Prince Edward here will try and go forward, and they have been held up in the maul, so hopefully they can get some turnover ball once again to atone for that mistake, Des.
Yeah, very fortunate there, St. George's College. They managed to hold the player up there, get turnover ball. They got another scrum inside their 22-meter line. Do they clear their lines, or do they try and run a very pedestrian walked move, as we saw from the last scrum?
Well, we do hope that they can get the ball down the line and try to recycle it again. We haven't seen much of that happening, and you would expect a side that has got very structured rugby in terms of their forwards to be doing that, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And Zuze here really hasn't put a foot wrong. The ball has been going in. It's a lovely pass there that's taken them through, but unfortunately it looks like that was a forward pass from St. George's College, and trying to run your way out of your own 22 always poses problems. This is another opportunity for Prince Edward to extend the lead again with their pacey backline.
Absolutely, and we saw there some great 8-man shove from the Prince Edward in the previous scrum. They'll take some confidence going into this, especially with it being their ball. And if St. George's are unlucky, if they don't press up fast enough and let this PE backline run at them, it's 5 points pretty much every single time they have their hands on the ball.
And yes, it doesn't look like the first time that the scrum was setting, it was good. So referee there is calling it to break up and telling the boys to do it well. Prince Edward with the feed in the scrum. This time round they come with a strong push, an 8-man break, but didn't look like a smart idea there, and it looks like they're fluffing their opportunity to have taken advantage of St. George's woeful play at the present moment. And now they were held up in a maul, but once again, all time, every day, it will be turnover ball when you go into that maul.
Definitely, and a much better defensive play there from the St. George's loose trio and scrum off. They definitely put pressure on PE, something they haven't done the whole half. There's an injury down for St. George's College. He's wriggling in pain, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. But if Prince Edward don't put pressure on if St. George's don't put pressure on Prince Edward, they're just giving them so much space to run into.
And maybe just to ask you from a refereeing perspective, I mean, you have been talking about the issue of going into a mall. Now, if you've gone into a mall, how far can you drive it, or how long is it before you can then try and break yourselves out of that mall?
Well, they do speak about there being law 22, which is common sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense sometimes setting up a mall in your own half and running all the way up the field and getting a 5-meter scrum. So it's not really an exact science to answer that question, but there is common sense involved that it just looks scrappy and messy for the game. And spectators are not here to watch boys show their strength, they're here to watch boys score points. So hopefully that answers your question.
In other words, not a big fan of it, but at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of malls in this festival from both the schoolboys and the schoolgirls, and I guess it's something that they've latched onto as some form of a defensive mechanism to get turnover ball. But it looks like there's an injury here to one of the St. George's boys, and he will have to have first aid attend to him. A little bit of ice there on one of the flankers, and immediately there's a substitution coming on, number 18 there. Not so sure if he will be able to come back on the field of play, because the elbow is a pretty painful joint to have an injury on. So let's just see what will happen from here for St. George's. I'm sure they'll get a good feed and a good scrum, but it's their backline which has been letting them down, really.
Yeah, it has been. They have been running very pedestrian-like, and unfortunately, they've not done themselves any favours. Prince Edward, when they get the ball in hand, they're a lot more hungrier to attack the defence, and St. George's just seem to be at a bit of 6 and 7s, whether it's defence or attack. They're not quite sure, knowing what they need to do, and I'm sure it will frustrate their coaches to no end that they put in hours and hours on the practice field for them to come out and play a game of rugby, that, as we've seen so far.
Oh yes, so hoping that they will be able to up the ante. With 31 minutes gone in the first half, you kind of feel that the halftime whistle is coming up anytime soon, and trailing 22-0, you really need a good halftime team talk that will get you to see where you're going wrong and maybe to understand what you can do better. But Zuze there, once again, it was a little bit of a poor pass, and finally a little bit of a dink up there by St. George's, but not caught cleanly by St. George's once it bounced pretty awkwardly for them there, and it will be a scrum down and Prince Edward ball. But it sounds like the referee has blown for halftime, as I predicted. A poor first half from St. George's College days.
Definitely, and I think the two camps are going into this team talk with two completely different attitudes. Prince Edward would want to just carry on doing much of the same. St. George's, however, coaching staff will definitely tell them that their line speed, whether it be in defence or attack, has been poor. They made bad decisions, and it's the story tells itself. It is 22 points to 0 here at St. George's College, at Prince Edward rather. St. George's has got a lot to do in the second half.
Oh, yes, definitely a lot to do. We will take the halftime break with PE leading 22-0 against St. George's College seconds.
It was nice. There was a TV and everything.
Welcome back to the Jubilee Field for the second half of this Prince Edward Tigers second team versus St. George's Dragons second team. It's been slightly one-way traffic in the first half. St. George's allowing Prince Edward to run back at them. They've made a couple of mistakes. And the Prince Edward team, like we saw in their first team yesterday, full of running. And St. George's, no doubt, a very animated and passionate coach, Brendan Bryder, has had some stern words to his team, and we hope to see a better performance from them in the second half.
So as St. George's restart the match for us, a nice high-hanging kick, unfortunately not collected well there, knocked on once again, so a repeat of some of the errors that they made in the second half. But what I would love to see is the St. George's College here play to their strengths and play to their game. They've got a good forward pack. They've been challenging Prince Edward very well, even at the scrums. So maybe try go for some face play and recycle the ball, and then once you get the opportunity, run the ball down the line.
Well, I'm wondering, one thing that hasn't really been tested is Prince Edward's defence. They look very good on attack, but maybe putting them under a little bit of pressure might change that. If they can try and put some pressure on this, or to force Prince Edward to defend somehow, it might be a little bit different, and maybe a little bit more of a press defence, a rush defence from the back line, stopping those fast runners of Prince Edward might make a little bit of difference. And there we saw an error from Prince Edward, just stopping their go forward ball.
And that's a good turnover ball there from St. George's. Very well done there to hold the man up in the ruck. Now, if you're in the half of Prince Edward here, and you've been talking about their defense being tested, the unfortunate thing is that the back line from St. George's has been really pedestrian. They really haven't been accelerating. They don't attack the Prince Edward line of defense with much vigor. So when you're pretty slow, you're allowing the opposition's defense to line up well, and they will definitely stop you anytime, any day.
Most definitely. I haven't, and something we probably saw from St. John's as well, we haven't really seen a good run from the back line. There's a chance now. And they're going to get in for the first points of the second half. So a little set move from St. George's, and finally they show a little bit of a skill set. I wouldn't be celebrating too much if I was St. George's. It's only the start, and they trail by a decent margin. They've got a lot more of work to do.
Oh yes, a lot more work to do, but once again it seems like as if earpieces are definitely in the ears of the boys. There was a little bit more urgency about that move. They penetrated the pocket of space. Prince Edward couldn't recover, and that's how they got their try. And we would love to see more of that happening even further down the field from the halfway line. If they are there, let them have a bit of urgency in what they are doing, and they will gain more yardage, more territory, and ultimately get the opportunity to score more points. So number 10 here should have a relatively easy job to get it over. It looks like it's in between the posts, and now Prince Edward still lead 22 points, but this time round to 7 points for St. George's.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better start. There was that inside ball, and there's the questionable defense of Prince Edward. Found a little bit wanting, and finally St. George's attacking the line, like you said, of Prince Edward, and a totally different look team. You allow Prince Edward to run at you and dominate the game, you're going to get punished.
All right, so the ball comes out here, and not so sure if to run out of your own 22 will be the best idea. They will go into contact, and once again it looks like there was a knock-on from St. George's there, or rather a forward pass from St. George's, and it will be scrummed down Prince Edward ball in very dangerous territory for St. George's. And if they concede a try here, you kind of feel that will deflate some of the momentum that they've begun the second half with.
Well, just a bit frustrating, I think. If you were either a player or on the bench of St. George's, it's just a sort of elementary error of a forward pass. It's almost like not really knowing what to do, and then waiting, and then just throwing a speculative pass.
All right, so it looks like an offside call there, and the penalty to Prince Edward. A quick tap and go. Yeah, they do have numbers on the outside, but running out of turf on the near side here, and St. George's employed that tactic again of trying to hold them in a maul, but unfortunately, well, it looks like they held them up long enough in that maul position, and it will be turnover ball here. So Prince Edward here need to understand that don't go into contact if you know you're going to be held up. Try to make sure that you go onto the ground, go for the ruck position, and then be able to recycle the ball, because this out-muscling your opposition isn't quite working.
Well, I think as well there's an element, and as much as what we saw in the first half, watching Prince Edward run with the ball is very exciting rugby, but it's very one-dimensional. So they've almost got a great game when it's going their way. When it's not, and that was a perfect example, like you said, you've taken the ball into contact and you've lost the ball. It's because they're not dominating. So the minute that a team realizes that it's okay for them to run at you, but try and dominate them back, all of a sudden Prince Edward don't know what to do with the ball.
Most definitely, you picked that one right out of the hat, and this time round it was a pretty poor kick, defensive kick rather, to try and clear their lines by St. George's, and they are still under pressure. But their lineouts have been much better and well contested by St. George's, and they get the ball here. Not so sure if Prince Edward will pull out of the maul, but they do here. And finally, they get a ruck position. They have an opportunity to stretch St. George's and attack. A pick and go would be really good here, but it looks like something happened in the ruck there. Not so sure if it was a knock-on, but it's going to be scrummed down and St. George's ball.
Well, St. George is not out of the woods yet, and they need a better exit strategy. The last one was poor. It put his fly half under pressure. It came out of the scrum too quickly. But a better exit strategy here. And you know what? I don't write off the fact that, you don't want to maybe kick the ball back and give Prince Edward a chance to run at you with a bit of space. Maybe an opportunity to run with the ball. Yes, it is a defensive run, but what have you really got to lose? You trailed the game by 22 points to 7. If you play Prince Edward at their own game, who knows? We saw them try it once. Why not try it again?
Looks like that defensive run almost went bad, but finally getting out of the tackle and at least finally out of their own try box and now pushing all the way through to their own 22. So looks like a good defensive run there, Dirk.
Well, exactly that, and I have no doubt, because that was the chat from Brendan Bryder. Yes, they look exciting on attack, but you haven't really put them under pressure on defense. Maybe a lot of teams would say don't run from your own try box. There's a nice little show and go. Should have looked for the offload. The scrum half for St. George's has been really good. He's always kept up with play, and he's really controlled the back of those breakdowns and scrums.
Another sidestep again, an offload chicken wing pass. Finally offload. Really good hands from St. George's there, but maybe not getting the desired result of breaking through lines. But it looks like Prince Edward had a high tackle there and a quick tap and go from Zuze there, the scrum half, and lovely passing from the young man. And it looks like St. George's have a chance here with an overlap on the outside, but very poor handling from their number 29 there, or 27 rather, and you kind of feel that was almost a missed try opportunity there.
Well, if you have a look at where they are now, they're on the 22 of Prince Edward. They haven't done anything fancy. They've held on to the ball. They've run that all from within their own try line. So again, the question is, yes, Prince Edward looked great in the first half on attack, running at the ball, hitting it at pace, looks fantastic. All of a sudden they've been put under pressure and they're not quite the same team anymore. And if St. George's keep playing like this, there's every chance they can come back into this game.
Oh yes, and we do hope that they do come back into the game and give us more entertainment here, and we would thoroughly enjoy that. So would the viewers as well, as you're watching on at Sand Sport Live on the Facebook page, as well as at the Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival page on Facebook. But Prince Edward get the ball here, and it looks like there's lots of running space for their far side winger, but now they've got ball in hand, and once again a couple of missed tackles, and this should give Prince Edward the ability to go for the run, but once again holding on to the ball far too long for Prince Edward. And it looks like St. George's there, it looked like a pretty good tackle, but unfortunately there it looks like it was a high tackle from St. George's, and immediately the referee has given a little bit of a warning. Kudakwashe Makoni here will do arguably the right thing for Prince Edward. Kick for touch here, relieve a little bit of pressure, because it looks like St. George's was on the ascendancy now, as you rightly put it, Dirk.
Well, I know that there were plenty of holes in that defence in the back line when Prince Edward had the ball, and they looked dangerous again, but guilty of holding on to the ball. And maybe that semi-rush defence of St. George's has put them under pressure, that when they forced them to pass, the passes haven't been as crisp when there's been some pressure. That's a steal from St. George's, a terrible line-out from Prince Edward. Support runners are there from the Dragons, and again, they're on the front foot. A lot better from the St. George's side. Still going forward as they approach the 22. They've got numbers on the far side, and referee's going to call a knock-on.
I'm not so sure how. Well, pretty harsh, especially on the scrum half when he's really trying to reach for the ball and bring it out. But then again, that's the point and the position where a scrum half can easily knock it on. Just a small tap and it goes forward, and unfortunately you find yourself on the wrong side of the decision. So Prince Edward will be the wiser and will be the better for this decision, and they receive their scrum. They have been totally dominated by St. George's. They have given a bigger push, but once again, this time round, the scrum holding steady. Prince Edward get the ball out here, and you kind of feel they've got an opportunity to attack. A back fling from Prince Edward, and it comes off there. And this time round, the scrum half has got an opportunity to go for it, but well brought down by St. George's. St. George's are still in 6s and 7s, are still rushing back into defensive positions. Wonderful tackle from the scrum half, and you've noted how well the young man has played, especially at the breakdown. But Prince Edward here are going to go for a drop goal. And I think that was a really poor decision from Prince Edward, especially when you've got the ascendancy.
Well, I think it goes back again to the little bit of showboating. Everyone wants to do the fancy stuff. And you've been so good on attack, getting it through the hands. You had, like you very clearly said, you had St. George's defence at 6s and 7s. They were all over the show. And then you attempt a drop goal. It's seriously questionable, but I think I know the reason why. It's because we want to be the one to look fancy. But again, St. George's let off the hook, and if they continue playing like they do, I have no doubt that they'll open up that defensive line of Prince Edward. It'll give them another chance.
And lovely high-hanging kick 20 from the 22 dropout there. An extremely poor pass from Prince Edward, and it goes straight into touch. And this is now close to the halfway line. They've really given St. George's a lot of advantage and a lot of territory here, which was unnecessary for that to be given. And St. George's should be able to get this line out, and they easily do. A little bit of a poor pass from the lock there after having received that line out.
He's done well, the scrum half. It's a slow ball, but he's managed to get it back for his team. But all of a sudden, it just looks like a Prince Edward side suddenly under a little bit of pressure, making little mistakes. They have stolen this one, though. And an opportunity now, it's stolen back, so knock-ons are plenty. So a little bit scrappy from both teams, but Prince Edward now have the advantage. They have the ball in hand. And again, happy to carry it themselves, not looking for the pass, but that's a good strong carry into the 22. Backwards, says the referee.
Forward! Forward!
Well, the ball comes out here, and pretty scrappy pass once again backwards for Prince Edward, but finally the young man, the number 20, taking it, a couple of handoffs and some leg drive there to try and go in. And once again, St. George's have to defend, but they are at the halfway line, and it looks like that rushing line speed, that defensive line speed from St. George's now putting Prince Edward under the pump, and they've now got the advantage of the knock-on here. But once again, without urgency, you allow the defense to really have a go at you, and they need better defense. An interesting kick from the young scrum half here. The ball comes to the winger, the number 14, tries to pass inside. Unfortunately, the pass doesn't quite go to hand there, and it will be a knock-on and scrum down to Prince Edward. But once again, you talked about that pressing speed, and it's now putting Prince Edward in 6s and 7s.
Well, I've let them off the hook there. That should have been a try. You had an open run to the try line. I'll tell you what, it's a totally different second half. It's St. George's been the ones that have shown a little bit more initiative. They've played the more structured rugby. And like I said, all of a sudden, Prince Edward under a little bit of pressure, making all the mistakes.
Oh yes, now with St. George's deep in the 22 of Prince Edward, they want to give it a big shove here. Unfortunately, they can't quite get it, and it looks like Prince Edward have knocked on once again, and St. George's are looking to take advantage here. Finally, Prince Edward get the ball. They try to go for the kick, but it's still within their own 22. St. George's get the ball. Can they pass it out wide and maybe make use of the space? And unfortunately, they can't. Got caught in contact there, but St. George's still have the ball, and they will have an opportunity to attack once again. So just trying to get the ball on their side are St. George's, and finally they do. Good distribution from Zuze there, the scrum half. The ball bounces kindly, but Prince Edward collected effectively, and they're only 5 meters away from their own try line are Prince Edward, and really here trying to get the ball are St. George's, and finally a defensive kick comes out from Prince Edward, and it bounces very well for Prince Edward. They gain good territory past the halfway line here. Not so sure what's going to happen. An extremely poor pass from St. George's, and good recovery by the scrummer from St. George's. Really poor play from St. George's, really trying to defend the ball, and they held on to the ball, but St. George's did not need to do that, Dirk.
Now, those are the little mistakes, and we've seen them all day. Now, Prince Edward over the 22 of St. George's. A real chance here for them to ideally bury this game, but there's the handling error again. A turnover to St. George's. Now all of a sudden they're on the front foot. It's a bit slow. Oh, that's just poor. It's poor rugby.
And mistimed run there by St. George's, and gives the advantage back to Prince Edward. Finally a big tackle on the 8th man there, and tries to go for the grubber, but well collected by St. George's here. There will be pressure on them, and St. George's get the ball here. They pass it out wide. Can he go all the way through here? Oh, he's one missed tackle, and it looks like the big man. Can he make it? He passes it in. A wonderful pass coming through to St. Oh, goodness me, to the fullback. But once again, he has to let the ball go. But it looks like Prince Edward didn't let go in the tackle there, and it is a penalty immediately to St. George's. So wonderful pressure coming from St. George's, and that pass almost came off from the 8th man.
Well, I mean, he obviously didn't have the pace to the back line, but yeah, again, St. George's, I mean, it's been to and fro. The handling has been terrible. It's been turnover after turnover, and play on from the referee, which has been good. And both teams throwing their bodies on the line. That you can see they're absolutely knackered. This is going to be interesting, the decision, because it's a penalty to St. George's. On what that decision is going to be, I would think that they need to take a scrum here, suck in those defenders of Prince Edward, and give yourself a real opportunity to attack again. Kicking into the corner may be an option for the line out, but I think that there's a chance here to maybe set the scrum and set another set play. They've scored already off a set play. Can they do it again?
Oh yeah, and it looks like they have gone for your decision. They are going to go for the scrum, and they will try and push over. And once again, they can't push too far because they're only allowed to push 1.5 meters.
I don't think it's going to be a scrum push. Prince Edward's scrum's okay. I think they're going to look at a backline move. I think they've got a plan here. They've been practicing some backline moves, and if ever they needed to come off, it's now.
Oh yeah, it really needs to come off because they are still trailing 22 points to 7 to Prince Edward here, and you kind of feel with another try, a converted try, it would really put them well within contention to try and steal away this match from the Prince Edward Seconds team. But it is going to be a scrum, and Zuze brings in the ball. A good scrum from St. George's here. Prince Edward trying to hold on, but once again, the referee here asking the scrum to just come off. Not so sure what they've been told to do here at this moment, because I kind of feel like Prince Edward were just coming out of the scrum at the end of the day, and it should have just gone to St. George's. But once again, I'm the man on the microphone, not with the whistle.
Well, I do agree with you. They were the ones who popped that scrum. But unfortunately, rugby, as we all know, it's so open to interpretation. The referee may be just thinking it needed a reset. He has this potential move we're looking for. And straight up the middle, as easy as you like, again. And we've said this, Prince Edward's defence, woeful. And the minute you put them under pressure, you've got half a chance. That should have been defended pretty simply. There wasn't anything fancy in that move, apart from a couple of passes inside, outside, a couple of dummy runners. But they just were standing there. The structures are not there, and you put them under pressure. We'll have another look at that move now. There was the outside ball, a little pop, and straight in the middle. 3 players that didn't know who their man was.
Oh yes, most definitely, and that becomes very tricky. And going into the season, I'm sure the technical bench here for the Prince Edward Seconds will be very concerned how they were not able to keep the men out there. But this should be a pretty easy conversion for St. George's once again, and as I said before, it kind of puts them in contention. 20 minutes gone in the match. You've got an odd 12 or 15 minutes left in this match to play, and they could get another 2 tries if they keep this pressure up there.
Well, the kick unsuccessful, and that's not good. So they trail by 10, and it's still a chance. The scoreboard says 22-10, but I think it's actually 22-12. They had a converted try. Their first one was under the post. So 22 points to 12. They trail Prince Edward. But I think all of a sudden, there's a little bit of belief in the St. George's team.
Most definitely, and they've got the time to do it. A nice high-hanging kick if they can collect this cleanly, which it wasn't, but at least not backwards. Once again, look at that young scrum half there, and we were talking about him with Des in the first half there, that if he can be nurtured really well, he can be one for the future for St. George's. Not so sure how old he is, but he really has been doing well, and St. George's now coming through with the big power hits here and causing Prince Edward a lot of problems. The ball comes out here, a grab. I'm not so sure if that was the best decision, but it looks like it's come off here, and St. George's tried to collect that one. Not so sure if there's going to be a knock-on. It doesn't look like there is, and St. George's still have possession from the restart here, and they are looking to pound on Prince Edward's woeful defense, and we spoke about it again. Another big hit here. Now Prince Edward trying to contest at the breakdown and looking to put hands in there, but still St. George's looking very good. A lovely pass, a nice dink over that defensive line. Unfortunately, it looks like it might have been a knock from St. George's there, especially when the ball was kicked over. Tried to get that ball, but they couldn't get to it. So it looks like it's going to be a scrum down here, and it's going to be Prince Edward ball.
Well, I think it should be a scrum down St. George's ball. Was it a knock-on? So knock-on call. I didn't see the knock-on. A question might be, why were you trying to kick it that close to the try line? You just scored a try. I think it is right. I think it's a St. George's put-in. It was taken back. So I was correct. So it's worked out okay, but you were so close to the try line. You've already broken their defense twice by just simple running with the ball, holding on to it. You've almost kicked away possession here, but they've got another chance, and they've got options both sides. I'd like to see a little pick and go from the 8th man, I think.
Most definitely, and well, it looks like it won't be a pick and go here. It looks like they will go for another move. It was knocked on by St. George's, and they will rue this missed opportunity to take advantage of what they had here. Now it looks like there is going to be a substitution, a big man coming through. He's wearing number 17 jersey, and he's going to come and join the scrum. He's a really big man, and he should add some weight into that scrum there, and hopefully St. George's will try and turn over what they actually let go here. So a lot of action taking place here towards the end of the day, and St. George's doing really well to try and come back into the match. Good fight back. At least they didn't give up, even though they were trailing 22-7. Now it's 22-12, and that's a huge scrum. The scrum is wheeling here, and the referee here gives a turnover here. It looks like there was a knock-on from Prince Edward. Maybe the 8th man tried to go for an 8-man break, and it was a knock-on. Now it's a scrum down, and it's St. George's ball, and they should have the opportunity to put down a try here.
Well, could we see the third move from the back line? That would get them close enough. They'll be in striking distance of Prince Edward. It's 22-0, remember, at half-time. It's now 22-12. It's been 12 unanswered points. Yes, they've had a couple of chances, Prince Edward, but they've been put under pressure, and St. George's have really had a little bit of belief, and they've brought themselves back into this game. They've scored 2 tries from set moves from the back line, and here's another opportunity. Perfect position, lots of open space on the near side, and lots of space for that backs to run. So it's going to be interesting to see what this decision is.
Right, we'll see what will happen here, and maybe try and take the ball down the blind side might be another option, but I really don't think so. He's shaping up to ship it down the line here. A wonderful pass once again. Will they repeat the move? Well, I guess this time round it was read very well by Prince Edward. They've got another opportunity here. A lovely sidestep, tries to go for the inside line, but once again, good defense there. Not so sure if Prince Edward took the ball away legally from that ruck there, but they have the opportunity here. They've charged the ball down, have St. George's. They've got an opportunity to press for the try line here. The ball comes out of the ruck, a pass, but doesn't quite go to hand. But scrum half here gets the ball again, passes it through to the fly-off, and it's a good tackle by Prince Edward to stop the fly-off, because if he had gone past them, then that would have created lots of space. Now it looks like Prince Edward will get the penalty here for St. George's holding onto the ball. So it's a quick tap and go by Prince Edward, and also looking to clear their lines. If it bounces, kindly for them, but it looks like it's a penalty to St. George's because of Prince Edward were offside, but not so sure what exactly is happening here with two penalty decisions being handed. Not exactly sure, Dirk, here, because it seems like confusion on the field.
Well, I think that the shouting from the St. George's bench is that that ball actually went backwards. It didn't go forwards. So how can the player be offsides? Anyway, they've called the scrum, have Prince Edward. I don't think there's too much time left on the clock, and I think St. George's have run out of time, but take your hat off to them. They've definitely dominated the second half, and unfortunately the scoreline will show that Prince Edward will win it in the end pretty comfortably, but they've won the second half here, St. George's, and maybe they can put one or two more points on the board, but Prince Edward, this is another look. So there it is. It's gone backwards and off the foot, to be honest. Well, off the foot doesn't matter. It's a tight head.
Well, anyway, they get the ball due. St. George's here will look to maybe try and push at this. It's 27 minutes gone in the match, and still Prince Edward leading 22 points to 12. Maybe a kick from here would have been a little bit good. A nice kick into space.
Well, I'd still like to see that because the fullback's way out of position. A little kick into the, there we go. It's a good little scrum half, this guy. He needed a little bit more width on it. Gathered by Prince Edward. Now a chance for them to counter.
And that step back inside definitely killed the entire move, but St. George's at least now can regroup and get back into defense, and it looks like it's a penalty to St. George's for Prince Edward holding onto the ball. Can they go for a quick tap here and maybe run the ball? But it looks like they are going to go for touch. They've been stronger in the lineouts, and that's a better decision.
I think it is. The only problem is that they're running out of time, so they need a good kick. It's not as much territory as they would have liked, but nevertheless they get to set up the line out. They'll pull all the forwards in, and I think if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think another attempt at a backline move to try and get over the try line.
Oh yes, and if they can get this one over, and maybe with a converted kick, they really put themselves in with a shout. So it looks like here comes the line out, a good line out there, and it looks like it didn't quite go in straight. So it's a free kick to Prince Edward here, and they tap and they look to run against St. George's. A lovely inside pass, and they almost broke through the St. George's defense there, and wonderful counter racking by St. George's, but they've really been driven over. But they get the ball here, a nice pick and go, but that looks like they were being handled around about his neck there, and once again it looks like Prince Edward here are going to get a caution, and they've been told to go back 10 here and not getting out, not rolling away from the tackle there. So St. George's have got another opportunity here, and they will go for that line out again, but as you rightly put it, Dirk, they are running out of time.
Well, you know you're under pressure when the referee keeps looking at his watch. That's good work from Prince Edward. So not finding the touchline. It's good work from Prince Edward, cleaning out that ruck. We'll find a little bit of space. I'm not so sure on whether or not that runner was on sides, but the referee allowed the play on, and he's going to call them back for a knock-on. And he had a perfect opportunity to just catch the ball and run when he's knocked it on. And again, an example of Prince Edward a little bit under pressure from the defender, and their skill set not quite that good.
Yeah, definitely not that good, and lots of questions will be asked when they get into the dressing room as to why they made so many errors, so many tries that they didn't score because of poor handling. Once again, dropping the ball once you're in the try box, that is unacceptable, and you really can't do that at this level, especially if you want to penetrate into the first team. But looking at the scrum, it's coming through to St. George's. You kind of feel they should win this one. Zuze has been a fantastic scrum half. Of the two scrum halves here, Prince Edward and St. George's, Zuze has been doing really, really good. Now this is the time where you go for that kick, but maybe a little bit too light from St. George's there. And a missed tackle here from the fullback. Tried to throw the ball back in and unfortunately gave away possession. But either way, I guess it would have gone to Prince Edward. So Prince Edward now looking to press forward. A nice dab from Kudama Koni here. He's alone and he kicks it again, but I'm sure it will go all the way through the try box. And it will be a 22 dropout. And it looks like it's game over in this match. So Prince Edward Seconds hold on for a 22-12 victory. But St. George's won't be too disappointed with the way that they played the second half.
Well, I think in the end, from the first half, Prince Edward probably deserved winners. They played really well in that first half. Having said that, St. George's let them play. Second half was totally different. St. George's came out and played a better brand of rugby and obviously played to their game plan. They'd worked out, Prince Edward, that if you ran hard at them and tested their defence, you had half a chance, and that's exactly what they did. So a good comeback from St. George's. I think a good second half. Yes, there were a couple of handling errors that made it look a bit scrappy. But at the end, a nice-hearted performance from both of them. And I think fair to say Prince Edward deserved winners.
Oh yes, fair to say Prince Edward deserved winners. And lovely to see that they're also showing good fair play there. Of course, handshakes all around for a really good game at the Jubilee Field. And this was the last game of the day, but you can look forward to more action coming through from the Dairibord Schools Rugby Festival. Tomorrow there'll be more and more action, and yes, you want to look forward to the last match of the day tomorrow, Prince Edward versus Churchill. And the Churchill Bulldogs have got a lot of work to do considering their performance yesterday. They'll be coming up against a very tough Prince Edward side which loves to run the ball.
Well, if I'm not mistaken as well, St. John's Rams will take on Lomagundi College, so that's a big game as well. And you can catch us live at 20 minutes to 1, 12:40. We'll go live for that first game at 1 o'clock. So make sure you join us. It's been another action-packed day of rugby here at Prince Edward School, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, and good evening.